Chapter 311. Beside the beach, on a desolate path with trees and vegetation. Tung Qing Shan, Li Jun, and the fisherman, Shangwan Quan, looked at the large group of soldiers surrounding the tungstenwood vessel through the sparse vegetation. The whole Gale Eagle was circling high up in the sky. This is bad. Shangwan Quan's complexion changed greatly. Hero, your treasured vessel has been discovered by the soldiers of the general's mansion. The treasured vessel was able to survive the submerged reef of the 9-rhythm treacherous currents without any damage. These soldiers must be very envious. Hero, do you have any other treasures on this treasure vessel? Tung Qing Shan looked into the distance. Does that fist-sized green gem count? Of course. Shangwan Quan was shocked. Hero, it will be very difficult to take back your treasured vessel. Who are they? General's mansion? Tung Qing Shan was not anxious. At least everything was still under his control, and the vessel had not been transported away. Shangwan Quan hastily explained, Hero, as I said before, there are a total of 18 generals' mansions in the 18 towns of Bright Moon Island. The towns near the sea have many soldiers stationed at the seaside barracks. These soldiers should be the soldiers of my northern Yin town's general's mansion stationed at the seaside. Hearing this, Tung Qing Shan nodded his head and looked at Shangwan Quan with a smile. Shangwan Quan, you ran with us for half a day. You did well. This is your reward. While speaking, Tung Qing Shan took out a small bag from his bosom. Inside the bag, there were a handful of scattered purple pearls and gave them to Shangwan Quan. There are not many purple pearls in this small bag, but there were at least 100 of them. Purple pearls, for me? Shangwan Quan suddenly opened his eyes wide and held his breath. Shangwan Quan's eyes were a little red. His mind replayed the scenes of the hardships he had suffered all these years. As a man, supporting a family was too tiring. I can't buy a good sword for my son, and I can also afford to treat my wife's illness. Thinking about it, Shangwan Quan was about to kneel down. These things are useless to us. Tung Qing Shan extended his hand and supported Shangwan Quan's shoulder. No matter how hard Shangwan Quan tried, he was unable to kneel down. Benefactor, Shangwan Quan was grateful. He had thought that he was going to suffer today, but who would have thought that a huge pie would fall from the sky? Over 100 purple pearls. If used sparingly, it would be enough for his family to use for the rest of his life. All right, you can go back, Tung Qing Shan ordered. Benefactor, Shangwan Quan hastily said, you must be careful. Even a good man can't fight against so many people. Also, the army's sword formation was very powerful. It was said that even the innate rankers had reached the level of innate. Facing the great sword array, once you are trapped, it will be very dangerous. This time, Shangwan Quan was truly thinking for the sake of Tung Qing Shan duo. Tung Qing Shan and Li Jun looked at each other. Great sword formation? A threat to an innate? Yes. Tung Qing Shan nodded. Shangwan Quan bowed again and again, then quietly left, leaving only Tung Qing Shan and Shangwan Quan. Next to Tung Qing Shan and Li Jun were 2 oversized bags. These were the rations, food, ingredients, clothes, and other items they bought from the town. Big brother Tung, what should we do? Li Jun looked at Tung Qing Shan and asked, kill them and then leave. Li Jun had experienced so much. When she was a young girl, she had personally killed all the murderers in front of her teacher. With this experience, Li Jun naturally wasn't a soft-hearted person. There are several hundred people here. Tung Qing Shan glanced at the distance and said, it depends on the situation. If we can avoid killing, then we won't kill. If they're really difficult to deal with, then they can't blame us. Tung Qing Shan's eyes were calm. Several hundred soldiers? Even if their swordsmanship was superb, Tung Qing Shan didn't put them in his eyes. Let's go. Tung Qing Shan carried the 2 big bags on his shoulders and carried a package on his back. He strode towards the beach. Li Jun also quietly followed behind him. On the beach, many soldiers were on the tungstenwood vessel. Quick, what are you doing up there? Everyone, hurry up and row the boat to the barracks. At this moment, the high-ranking officer was holding 2 fist-sized iron leaf fruits in his hands as he roared. Lord, this vessel only has 2 oars, and they are both extraordinarily long. We can't row them at all. The group of soldiers on the tungstenwood vessel were also anxious. What? The high-ranking officer glared. Previously, he had boarded the vessel to look at the iron leaf fruits and didn't notice that there were only 2 oars. How could ordinary soldiers row the tungstenwood vessel, which was over 10 zhang long, with 2 oars and was within the range of the 9-rhythm treacherous current? Mother asterisk cur, it's really troublesome. The high-ranking officer frowned and immediately shouted to the surrounding people, "Brothers, hurry up and find ropes. Everyone, put in more effort and drag this big vessel back to the barracks. This time there's so many treasures. Hand over half of them, and the rest will be divided among us brothers." Okay. These soldiers were so excited that their eyes turned red like calves. Some boarded the boat to find ropes, some dismantled the fishing nets, and some went to the nearby fishermen to ask for ropes. In short, everyone was thinking of a way. At this moment, everyone, "What are you busy with?" A hearty laughter suddenly resounded, as if an acquaintance was greeting someone. The voice was so loud that it was like the rumbling of thunder. Immediately, the high-ranking officer and all the soldiers turned their heads to look. They saw a young man with long hair draped over his shoulders and a face full of stubble. He was carrying 2 extremely large sacks that were 1 size bigger than him. Beside him was a pretty girl dressed in purple, a wild beast and a fairy. When the 2 of them stood together, it was indeed astonishing. F***CK off. F***CK off. Immediately, a soldier shouted, "The general's mansion is handling a matter. Those who are not involved, get out of the way." Seeing Tung Qingshan and Zhang Wuji walking over, a soldier immediately wanted to push Tung Qingshan further away. "Get lost." A soldier pushed Tung Qingshan's chest with his large palm. "Get lost." Phew. The soldier was directly sent flying for a full 6 to 7 zhang. Splash. His entire body fell into the sea, splashing white waves. Second brother. A soldier's eyes instantly turned red, and he immediately looked at Tung Qingshan. "You bastard." According to common sense, a person would be sent flying 6 to 7 meters high. Normally, this kind of recoil would be enough to kill a person. Tung Qingshan carried 2 extremely large sacks and walked with large strides. Pucci. The soldier pulled out his sword and stabbed at Tung Qingshan. When the sword stabbed out, it was as if there was a murderous aura pervading the air. Tung Qingshan, who was walking normally, only took a simple step forward and strangely dodged the sword. Then, his shoulder collided with the soldier's body, and the soldier was also shaken to the point of rolling 3 to 4 times on the sand. "Bastard, you're courting death." Instantly, the surrounding hundreds of soldiers were enraged. With a series of clang, 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 hundreds of sharp swords had already been unsheathed. Pooh! At this moment, a figure emerged from the sea and spat out a mouthful of saliva. His face was filled with ecstasy as he shouted, "I didn't die. Ha, I didn't die." The soldier who had tumbled a few times turned his head to look, and his face was filled with surprise. "Second brother, you didn't die. I'm still alive and well. I am not injured at all." The soldier in the water was also very surprised. Immediately, the surrounding hundreds of soldiers looked at this scene in astonishment. He was sent flying 6 to 7 zhang from the ground, but he was actually completely fine? This was too strange. In an instant, almost all the soldiers understood. This boorish man carrying the extremely large sacks was a true super expert. At least, his method of exerting his strength was much stronger than theirs. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tung Qingshan and Li Jun both took a few steps on the beach and jumped at the same time. Li Jun was also an expert at the peak of the post-liminary realm, so it was not difficult for her to jump onto the deck of the tungstenwood vessel. While the soldiers of the northern Yin town's general's mansion were still in a daze, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun had already boarded the vessel. "What are you guys doing?" Some of the valiant soldiers on the tungstenwood vessel immediately berated. "What am I doing?" Tung Qingshan exerted force with his right foot and opened the cabin door. Soon after, he used his innate true origin on the 2 large sacks and lightly threw them to the bottom of the cabin. Tung Shan immediately raised his head and looked at the group of people. He smiled and said, I haven't asked what you guys are doing yet. All of you, get off the boat. Tung Shan walked over. He wants to get off the boat. The group of soldiers glared. On the Bright Moon Island, the 18 generals' mansions could do whatever they wanted. I told you to get down. Tung Shan's body moved like an illusion and directly rushed towards the dozens of people on the deck, waving his hands. Phew! Phew! One by one, the soldiers were thrown into the ocean by Tung Shan like sandbags. Stop! An angry roar sounded. You're courting death. The dozens of people were enraged, but it was useless no matter how angry they were. In just the time of 2 breaths, the dozens of people were thrown off the tungsten wood vessel. Plop, plop, plop. One by one, the soldiers fell into the ocean, causing the seawater to splash into the sky. You, what are you doing? The high-ranking officer was so angry that his eyes turned red. He angrily roared, This treasured vessel belongs to our northern Yin town's general's mansion. You dare to snatch it in front of hundreds of soldiers? Are you courting death? Yours? On the tungsten wood vessel, Tung Shan glanced at him and laughed. The northern Yin town's general's mansion is one of the 18 general's mansions. Are you robbers? Looking at your attire, you should be a high-ranking officer. Aren't you ashamed of saying this? Aren't you ashamed? The ship is yours now. Ha! Tung Shan's laughter caused the high-ranking officer's face to turn unsightly. Let go of the vessel and leave quickly. I will forgive you for your offense. Otherwise, even if you are a member of the Sword Tower, our general's mansion has the right to sentence you to death. The high-ranking officer shouted angrily. The hundreds of soldiers held sharp swords in their hands and coldly stared at Tung Shan on the tungsten wood vessel. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice sounded. Big Brother Tung, the iron leaf fruits are not in the cabin. They're all gone. Iron leaf fruits? The hundreds of soldiers were slightly startled. On the bow of the tungsten wood vessel, the young boorish man with long hair draped over his shoulders and a face full of stubble laughed loudly. His body was like a sharp arrow piercing through the air. With this leap, he actually traversed nearly 30 zhang, directly passing from the tungsten wood vessel to the crowd of soldiers on the beach. Let go! Tung Shan snatched the big fishing net that contained the iron leaf fruits from the front of the group of soldiers. You! The high-ranking officer's face turned ashen. The one with the green face. Tung Shan looked over and said, Stop putting on airs. Give me the 2 iron leaf fruits in your hands. Chapter 312. The high-ranking military officer was furious. Oh, it's the 2 fist-sized green gems in your hands. Tung Shan carried a large fishing net and walked over with large strides. The surrounding soldiers were all holding sharp swords, but they didn't dare to act on their own. Everyone looked at the high-ranking military officer from time to time. After the short encounter, everyone knew that this young boorish man possessed terrifying strength. If they were to really start a fight, even if they could kill the other party, they would suffer heavy casualties. It had been a long time since the Bright Moon Island had a large number of casualties. The soldiers were somewhat hesitant. The general's mansion is handling a matter. Don't cause trouble here. The high-ranking military officer's face darkened as he pointed at Tung Shan and shouted, These gems also belong to the general's mansion. Put them down. Although they realized that the person in front of them was a super powerful expert, the general's mansion was used to being overbearing. Moreover, this was the territory of the northern Yin town. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Tung Shan's face darkened. His body swayed. Stop him. The high-ranking military officer threw the 2 iron leaf fruits on the beach and simultaneously pulled out the sharp sword at his waist. Stop. A dozen or so nearby soldiers shouted angrily and thrust the sharp swords in their hands. After Tung Shan used crossing worlds, he moved like a ghost. Within the narrow area, only 2 of the dozen soldiers could barely reach Tung Shan. Clang, clang. With 2 clear sounds, the 2 sharp swords broke. Bang! Tung Shan moved his right leg. His kick was so fast that the high-ranking military officer, who was at the peak of the post-liminary realm, was kicked away without any resistance. Pooh! Blood spurted out of his mouth as he fell heavily on the beach. After Tung Shan picked up the 2 iron leaf fruits with his left hand, he quickly rushed towards the tungsten wood vessel. The high-ranking military officer, who fell on the sand, raised his head. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He was so angry that his eyes were about to split open as he roared. Get into formation. Great sword formation. Kill. Hundreds of soldiers' eyes were red as they prepared to get into formation. Phew! Who? The ghost-like figure flashed past the crowd and leaped into the air. He directly leaped over 20 zhang high and nearly 30 zhang away, turning into a small dot in the sky. The several hundred soldiers could only stare at him helplessly. Soon after, the figure landed on the deck of the tungsten wood vessel and placed the fishing net that had collided with a large number of iron leaf fruits into the cabin. General, what should we do? The group of soldiers was a little anxious. The sword formation was powerful, but at the very least, its power could only be unleashed when others were within the sword formation. But the other party was so fast, and they had already boarded the ship. How would they go to surround them? F***CK him. The general stood up and glared into the distance. Brothers of the Ghost Domain Water Camp, surround that ship. Don't let him escape. When the dozens of soldiers who were pushed into the sea by Tung Shan heard the order, they quickly surrounded the shore of the tungsten wood vessel and pulled out their sharp swords. If he wants to escape, then destroy this ship. Destroy it. The officer roared. Yes, my lord. Dozens of soldiers roared in unison. Tung Shan stood at the bow of the tungsten wood vessel. Big brother Tung. Li Jun's charming face had a hint of killing intent. These people are annoying. If I had known earlier, I would have been ruthless from the beginning. Tung Shan also frowned. He immediately looked at the blood-stained and furious officer on the beach not far away. He also felt that the matter was troublesome. Dozens of soldiers are surrounding the bottom of the tungsten wood vessel. The tungsten wood vessel's body is very hard. Tungsten wood is harder than steel, and its toughness is even better. However, it's impossible for it to withstand the sword tip of an inner strength expert. An inner strength expert slap was enough to crack steel. Moreover, when the attack power was concentrated at the sword tip, the penetrating power of the sword tip was even more astonishing. The tungsten wood vessel could withstand the collision of the reef, but it was impossible for it to withstand the piercing of the soldiers' sword tips. On the beach, after the officer gave the order, he looked towards the young, boorish man at the bow of the vessel. Ha! The young, boorish man's laughter shook the heavens. Soldiers, this ship is mine, and the things on the ship are also mine. Why do you have to stop me today? The officer glared angrily at Tung Shan at the bow of the vessel. He had long realized that this ship might belong to this mysterious expert. However, so what if it belonged to the other party? Just because you say it's yours, it's yours? The officer laughed angrily. Oh, today you say that this ship is yours. Tomorrow, if another expert comes and says that this ship is his, the day after tomorrow, maybe a general will come and ask for this ship. Ha! Tell me, what should I do? This sea belongs to my northern Yin town. All the ownerless things in the sea belong to my northern Yin town's general's mansion. The officer said loudly, I will still say this. Leave quickly, and I will spare your life. Otherwise, on this bright moon island, don't even think about escaping. Hundreds of soldiers stared at Tung Shan. Xiao! An ear-piercing sound suddenly rang high up in the sky. Tung Shan raised his head and looked. With his amazing eyesight, he instantly saw a whistling arrow shooting high up into the sky. A whistling arrow. Tung Shan's expression changed. His gaze turned cold as he looked at the officer. The officer smiled confidently. In this northern Yin town, our general's mansion is the heavens. Even if you're an innate expert, you still have to be obedient here. Let me tell you, everyone will be here soon. There was something that he didn't say. This whistling arrow was the highest level of the distress arrow, cloud-piercing arrow. Once the cloud-piercing arrow was shot, everyone who saw would gather. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Tung Shan's expression darkened. A ray of light streaked across the sky. Whoosh! He shot directly into the crowd. Set up the formation. A high-pitched and sharp shout rang out. The soldiers who were already prepared immediately formed a large sword formation. When Tung Shan rushed into the crowd, he was surrounded by one of the large sword formations. This large sword formation is quite interesting. Tung Shan instantly realized that this large sword formation was formed by 36 soldiers. These 36 soldiers were divided into 3 layers. When each layer attacked Tung Shan, they covered the sky and the earth like a surging sea wave. 12 people, 12 swords, attacking at the same time. When the power of the 12 swords is stacked together, it has a penetrating force of several 10,000 jin. Even an emptiness Dan innate expert would have to use all his strength to deal with it. Moreover, after the 12 of them stabbed once, they immediately retreated and the second wave of attack came. The 3 layers, inner, middle, and outer, formed an endless situation. When Tung Shan fell into the formation, he felt that the 36 people had transformed into waves. Moreover, the 36 people cooperated very well, allowing the attacks to be continuous. If it was a normal emptiness Dan innate expert, he might really be hit if he wasn't careful. If there were 5 to 6 large sword formations surrounding him, the innate expert's true origin would be exhausted. Haha, interesting. Tung Shan laughed loudly. His arms were like 2 iron rods as he swung them. Boom! More than 10 figures were sent flying from the impact. Whoosh! Tung Shan took advantage of the chaos in the sword formation and immediately leaped over 20 zhong, landing in the direction of the high-ranking officer. Not good. The high-ranking officer didn't even have time to escape. However, Tung Shan grabbed his collar and lifted him up. Didn't you want to capture me? Tung Shan looked at him. You. The high-ranking officer was shocked and angry. I am from the general's residence. Tung Shan's knee struck the high-ranking officer's abdomen. The high-ranking officer's face turned pale, and his eyes widened. Who do you think you are? Tung Shan sneered and casually threw the high-ranking officer. The high-ranking officer fell on the sand pile, and his eyes were filled with horror. My Dantian, my Danton. With the knee strike, Tung Shan had already broken his Dantian. Tung Shan wasn't the kind of person who would be merciful to people who didn't want face. He didn't even care about 300 soldiers. He even dared to kill an army of 100,000. What was 300 people? You. The high-ranking officer still couldn't believe that the other party was so unscrupulous. He was wrong. He was ridiculously wrong. The 18 generals' residences all had thousands of years of history. They were indeed deeply rooted. However, what did this have to do with Tung Shan? Tung Shan was basically an outsider. Even if the general of the general's residence came, Tung Shan would still kill him with one punch. In northern Yin Town, in an ancient mansion that occupied an extremely large area, Lord General, the military camp at the South Sea sent a cloud-piercing arrow for help. A soldier reported anxiously. The white-haired elder who was sitting cross-legged under the pavilion and meditating with his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes. Cloud-piercing arrow? Quickly go and invite Master Lin. The elder immediately stood up. His face was full of solemnity. Unless it is the most crucial moment, the cloud-piercing arrow is not allowed. Did they encounter an attack from overseas demonic beasts? Or was there a traitor? In the Bright Moon Island's 9-rhythm treacherous current in the South Sea, voila, the deep and unfathomable sea water was surging. A piece of reef emerged from the water. On this dark reef, a middle-aged man wearing a loose white robe with long hair, a white face, and narrow eyes was sitting cross-legged. On his back, there was a green, sheathed, godly sword. He just sat on the reef with his eyes closed. Ooh. The strangest thing was that the seawater around the reef he was sitting on would actually flow away before it touched the reef. It was as if there was an invisible force controlling it. Xiao! A loud sound resonated in the distant sky. The white-robed, beardless middle-aged man opened his eyes. His gaze was like two rays of sword light. It was very frightening. Cloud-piercing arrow? Could it be that another demonic beast from overseas has come to my Bright Moon Island to behave atrociously? Who? The middle-aged man's body suddenly flashed and disappeared from the reef. He transformed into an illusory white afterimage and stepped on the surface of the sea at a terrifying speed, rapidly rushing towards the direction of the cloud-piercing arrow. The sea under his feet was like land. After Tung Shan broke the sword formation and destroyed the dantian of the high-ranking officer, many of the soldiers were stunned as well. Tung Shan then quickly returned to the tungsten wood vessel. At this moment, no soldiers below dared to threaten Tung Shan anymore. Even the sword formation was useless, so they had no other choice. Big Brother Tung, one of the anchors, was chopped off. Li Jun hastily said, "Forget it. Don't bother with them. Set sail, let's go." Tung Shan immediately walked to the two long oars, grabbed the two long oars with his strong hands, and started shaking them. Suddenly, from the corner of his eyes, Tung Shan noticed a white shadow flashing rapidly along the beach. Soon, it arrived at the numerous soldiers. Tung Shan was secretly shocked. Such a fast speed. When the high-ranking officer whose dantian was destroyed saw the approaching person, his eyes immediately emitted an indescribable radiance. He hastily shouted with a hoarse voice, "Tower Lord!" Whoosh! The white-robed man moved and leaped into the sky from 20 to 30 zhang away. He landed on the railing of the tungsten wood vessel and stared coldly at Tung Shan. When Tung Shan saw the approaching person, he grinned and said, "Good Qinggong." Chapter 3:13. Dressed in a loose white robe, his eyes were like sword rays, condensed and unmoving. Standing on the railing of the tungsten wood vessel, the Lord of the Sword Tower's robe fluttered in the sea breeze. "Tower Lord!" The high-ranking officer ran on the beach in a sorry state and shouted hoarsely, "I don't know where this young boorish man came from." The soldiers of the general's mansion obtained this treasured vessel from the sea with great difficulty. But this young boorish man said that this vessel belongs to him. Relying on his superior strength, he snatched it from our hands, broke my dantian, and crippled my inner strength. Tower Lord, please uphold justice for us." The high-ranking officer roared with all his might. "Tower Lord, please uphold justice for us." Immediately, the hundreds of soldiers shouted one by one. Their voices rumbled and echoed in the air above the surrounding beach. These soldiers looked at the Lord of the Sword Tower with a trace of worship and respect. The legendary Lord of the Sword Tower was the most powerful and invincible existence on the entire island. The Bright Moon Island was only so big, and many people had seen the Lord of the Sword Tower. "Don't worry." The Lord of the Sword Tower's cold voice sounded. Immediately, there was silence. The Lord of the Sword Tower stood on the railing of the tungsten wood vessel and looked at the young boorish man with disheveled hair and a face full of stubble. Needless to say, the hundreds of soldiers of the general's mansion possessed strength. With the arrogance of the soldiers, to force them to submit and admit defeat, one had to at least have the strength of an innate expert. Moreover, only a few of the soldiers were injured, except for the high-ranking officer whose dantian was broken. He didn't injure the soldiers, but made them fear him. This young man's strength should be very strong. A trace of curiosity arose in the Lord of the Sword Tower's heart. Of course, at this moment, the Lord of the Sword Tower did not put Tung Shan in his eyes. As the #1 expert of the Bright Moon Island, he had been invincible for too long. "Why did you snatch this ship?" The Lord of the Sword Tower looked down and asked coldly. Before Tung Shan could speak, Li Jun, who was beside him, said with dissatisfaction, "You are so unreasonable. Why didn't you ask clearly? This ship belongs to us in the first place, and those soldiers of the general's mansion wanted to snatch it because they coveted our ship. It's ours, of course we have to take it back." "Yours." The Tower Lord carefully examined the tungsten wood vessel. "Yes, this is our ship." Tung Shan smiled. We'll take back what's ours, right? Just now, many soldiers came to stop us and even attacked us. That general also spoke rudely again and again. I only punished him slightly and didn't kill him. The Tower Lord of the Sword Tower. So, you shouldn't ask us like this. You should ask those soldiers. After the Tower Lord carefully observed the tungstenwood vessel, he turned his head and looked at the soldiers behind him. The group of soldiers were somewhat hesitant and did not speak. Floor Master. The general's eyes reddened. We've already carefully inspected this ship. The material of this ship is not from our Bright Moon Island at all. Furthermore, inside the cabin, there were fist-sized green gems. Our Bright Moon Island has never had this kind of gem before, so I'm sure. The captain stared at the distant Tung Ching Shan. This ship doesn't belong to our Bright Moon Island. It's a ship from the outside. If this ship really belongs to the two of them, then the man and woman are not from our Bright Moon Island. They are outsiders. Outsiders? The Tower Lord squinted his long and narrow eyes. He immediately looked at the silver-inlaid marks on the side of the ship and the material of the entire ship. He even looked at the sail under the mast. The corner of the Tower Lord's mouth curled into a strange smile as he looked at Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun. If this ship is yours, then you are outsiders? Li Jun and Tung Ching Shan looked at each other. If they said they were from the Bright Moon Island, then this ship wouldn't belong to them. After all, the Bright Moon Island couldn't build a tungstenwood vessel. They didn't even have tungsten wood, so how could they build it? We are outsiders. Tung Ching Shan nodded. Tung Ching Shan didn't care about the Bright Moon Island. An island with a population of 10 million would only have a powerful army of 100,000. It would be good if there were 2 or 3 Golden Dan and Nate experts. Even if all of them came, Tung Ching Shan wouldn't be afraid. Moreover, the Tower Master of the Sword Tower, who had appeared before him, was already recognized as the strongest expert on the island. However, judging from his Qing Gong, he had yet to reach the Emptiness Realm. If he hadn't reached the Emptiness Realm, why would Tung Ching Shan be afraid? They really are outsiders. Interesting. The Tower Lord looked at Tung Ching Shan carefully. Tower Lord, the captain shouted anxiously in the shallow water by the beach. They all admit that they are outsiders and not from our Bright Moon Island. However, they are so arrogant in our Bright Moon Island. It's obvious that they don't care about our Bright Moon Island. These people must be punished severely. Tung Ching Shan smiled and glanced at the captain who was shouting in the sea. The captain was right. Tung Ching Shan did not care about the Bright Moon Island. Shut up. A cold voice sounded. The captain, who had a crazy look on his face, froze like a duck that was being strangled. Then, he lowered his head and didn't dare to make sound. He finally remembered the identity of the other party, the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, the most powerful expert in the entire Bright Moon Island. The other party didn't need a captain whose inner strength was destroyed to tell him what to do. Our Bright Moon Island hasn't had outsiders for a very long time. The last time someone came was over 100 years ago. The Tower Lord looked at Tung Ching Shan and asked, "Which place are you from? Heavenly Flipping Island or Cyanwood Island?" Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun were both slightly stunned. Heavenly Flipping Island? Cyanwood Island? Yes. Tung Ching Shan suddenly understood. I set out to sea in July. The wind was right, so I drifted northward from the land of the 9 prefectures. With the wind, I could travel 8 to 900 li or even 1,000 li in one day and one night. After 3 months, I traveled at a slower speed, but I still traveled about 70 to 80,000 li, 70 to 80,000 li from the northern prairie. Along the way, there were tsunamis, hurricanes, and demonic beasts. If I hadn't reached the innate realm, I wouldn't have been able to survive until now. Tung Ching Shan was very clear about the dangers of living on the sea for more than 3 months. The tungstenwood vessel might be fine if it encountered some submerged reefs, but other people might not have a vessel as good as Tung Ching Shan's. If they encountered some dangerous situations, hurricanes, and so on, Tung Ching Shan could go into the sea and grab the iron chain to stabilize the tungstenwood vessel. Many dangerous situations were nothing in front of Tung Ching Shan. Tung Ching Shan didn't even care about the 9-rhythm treacherous currents. which gave the Bright Moon Island a headache. In his eyes, these weren't dangerous at all. However, Tung Ching Shan could come over safely. It didn't mean that others could come over safely. The land of the 9 prefectures was too far away from the Bright Moon Island. Who would be bored enough to keep drifting towards the North Sea with the strength of an innate? It seems that there should be other islands around the Bright Moon Island. Tung Ching Shan thought to himself. Lord of the Sword Tower. Tung Ching Shan opened his mouth and said, "Now that things have been made clear, this vessel is ours. I don't want things to get out of hand between us. Please disembark now. We are about to leave. It's fine if you come to my Bright Moon Island, but if you want to leave, none of the people who came here could leave." The Lord of the Sword Tower said coldly. Tung Ching Shan's eyes turned cold. What? Were all the outsiders captured by you? No. The Lord of the Sword Tower shook his head. The several hundred li of sea surrounding the Bright Moon Island is the territory of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents. The sea is turbulent, and the undercurrent under the sea is even more turbulent. No matter what kind of vessel it is, it's easy to float in along with the sea. However, if you want to leave, it's impossible to go against the current. That's not something for you to worry about, Lord. Tung Ching Shan said indifferently, Lord, please disembark. Lord, the high-ranking officer whose dantian was destroyed couldn't help but shout. Hundreds of soldiers looked at the Lord of the Sword Tower, who was standing on the railing of the tungsten-wood vessel with his white robe fluttering. Outsider. The Lord of the Sword Tower's cold voice sounded. This is my Bright Moon Island, and the Sword Tower is in charge here. You are an outsider. Even if this vessel is yours, you can't hurt the people of my Bright Moon Island. Since you have hurt the people of my Bright Moon Island will definitely punish you severely. Follow me back to the Sword Tower. You want to capture me without asking the right and wrong? Tung Ching Shan smiled and glanced at Little June at the same time. Little June immediately understood Tung Ching Shan's meaning and raised his head to look at the whole gale eagle that was circling in the sky. On my Bright Moon Island, outsiders are not allowed to act presumptuously. The Lord of the Sword Tower's eyes turned cold. If you resist again, don't blame me for being merciless. As the saying goes, help one's own people, but not one's own people. Today, Tung Ching Shan saw the saying, help one's own people, but not reason. Screech, a bird's cry suddenly resounded. The whole gale eagle suddenly swooped down from the sky. The strong airflow caused the Lord of the Sword Tower, who was standing on the railing, to sway slightly before he immediately steadied himself. The entire tungsten-wood vessel started to sway. Many soldiers could only lower their heads and bend their waists. At the same time, someone shouted, "It's a demonic beast! Demonic beast! Everyone be careful!" Terrified shouts resounded. In the history of the Bright Moon Island, it was not the first time that they were attacked by demonic beasts that passed by. Therefore, they were very careful. Evil creature, how dare you? The Lord of the Sword Tower waved his hand, and a cold white sword light flew out. Xiao! An earthy yellow shadow shot out from Tung Ching Shan's fist. Bang! With a sound, Tung Ching Shan's internal supreme force collided with the cold white sword light in midair. The chaotic energy dispersed in all directions in midair. Phew! The whole gale eagle descended to the ground and approached the tungsten-wood vessel. Li Jun leaped up and landed on the back of the whole gale eagle. The whole gale eagle immediately ascended. Very soon, it left the sea surface and reached an extremely high altitude. Big Brother Tung, be careful. Li Jun's voice came from above. Li Jun had already discussed with Tung Ching Shan. If they were to encounter any danger, the first thing they should do was to let Li Jun sit on the back of the whole gale eagle and hide far away, leaving Tung Ching Shan to fight alone. If it was too dangerous, even Tung Ching Shan wouldn't be able to withstand it. Tung Ching Shan would also get on the back of the whole gale eagle. What? This demonic beast is yours? The Lord of the Sword Tower was shocked. On the Bright Moon Island, no one had ever been able to control demonic beasts. After all, there were no demonic beasts on the Bright Moon Island. That's none of your business. Tung Ching Shan glanced at him and said, Tower Lord, please leave my tungsten-wood vessel immediately. Otherwise, I can only beat you until you leave. Chapter 314. Hearing Tung Qingshan's words, the expression of the Tower Lord, who had always been as cold as ice, changed slightly. His gaze instantly became as sharp as a sword, piercing into Tung Qingshan's body, as if he wanted to cut Tung Qingshan into 1,000 pieces. In the entire Bright Moon Island, no one had ever dared to say to the Tower Lord, "Beat you until you leave. Brat, you're crazy enough." In an instant, the Tower Lord put his index finger and middle finger together, and a cold white sword light emerged from the tip of his finger. The Tower Lord's body instantly dived down. He didn't even draw his sword, but instead used his sword finger to rapidly point at the space between Tung Qingshan's eyebrows. The sword finger was extremely swift and fierce, and the sword finger faintly emitted waves of cold air. Huh! Tung Qingshan's laughter suddenly resounded. Boom! A deep and low sound of a collision suddenly resounded. At the same time, the figure of the Lord of the Sword Tower, whose white clothes fluttered in the wind, was sent flying away from the tungsten wood vessel. While in midair, the Lord of the Sword Tower turned around and landed on the beach as if he was floating. However, his gaze was as if he was staring at his prey as he raised his head and looked at the tungsten wood vessel. He understood that this time he had met his match. The Tower Lord's gaze was blazing. It was too difficult to find a match for an expert. Good sword art. A hearty laughter resounded. A figure dressed in an azure cloak directly soared up from the tungsten wood vessel and landed on the beach. He held a silver long spear in his hand, and his gaze was completely focused on the Tower Lord. The two super experts, after a simple exchange, they both realized each other's astonishing strength. This person actually didn't die. He actually withstood one move from the Tower Lord and still didn't die. Hundreds of soldiers found it hard to believe as they watched this scene in shock. The invincible image of the Tower Lord had long been deeply engraved in everyone's hearts. On the entire Bright Moon Island, the number of people who could withstand one move from the Tower Lord without dying could be counted on one hand. Rumble, a chaotic sound resounded. From the west side of the beach, a large number of soldiers were madly dashing towards this direction. Each and every one of them was running on their two legs. There were a lot of people. At first glance, there was an endless stream of densely packed people emerging from the west side of the beach, from a path among the grass and trees. There are quite a lot of people, Tung Qingshan said. The Sword Tower's Tower Master observed Tung Qingshan attentively. He wasn't in a hurry to attack. The army has arrived. The eyes of the hundreds of soldiers on the beach lit up. Brother Liu. A clear shout rang out, and the two leading generals immediately cupped their hands towards the heavily injured general whose Dantian had been destroyed and said, "The 3,000 men of the barracks are all here." The general's mansion of a northern Yin town was stationed at the seaside barracks. There were a total of 3,000 men and horses. Apart from the hundreds of people that General Liu had brought with him at the beginning, more than 2,000 people had also arrived. It was only because of the short distance that he was able to arrive so quickly. As for the general's mansion and the army of the Sword Tower, they were still on their way. Tower Master. Only now did the two generals realize that the white-robed man was actually the Tower Master of the Sword Tower. Greetings, Tower Master. The two generals immediately greeted respectfully, paying respects to the Pavilion Master. The numerous soldiers who had just arrived also respectfully shouted in unison, their shouts shaking the heavens. Both of you retreat to the side. Be careful of being accidentally injured," the Tower Master said indifferently. The two generals hastily obeyed the order and moved to the side of General Liu, whose Dantian had been destroyed. One of the tall generals hastily asked in a low voice, "Brother Liu, who is that green-robed, boorish young man? It seems like he can fight with the Tower Master head-on. What's the use of being powerful? We have 3,000 soldiers. We can exhaust him to death with our men," General Liu said while gnashing his teeth. The expressions of the two generals changed slightly. It seemed like General Liu didn't care about the lives of the soldiers. This made them slightly dissatisfied and puzzled. On the beach, Tung Shan and the tower master faced each other from a distance. The sea breeze blew, and the seawater of the Nine-rhythm treacherous currents surged. The surrounding 3,000 soldiers watched this scene in shock and excitement. Even the generals of the general's mansion rarely had such an opportunity to see the tower master fight. The tower master grabbed the hilt of the sword on his back with his right hand. His 5 fingers were slender and white, like a woman's hand. However, these 5 fingers were very powerful. Clang! The godly sword was unsheathed. The entire godly sword was dark green, and there were faint traces of blood on the blade. A weakling doesn't need me to know his name. However, you have the strength to fight with me. You are a powerhouse. Outsider, tell me your name. The tower master looked at Tung Shan from a distance. His voice was clear and loud, even suppressing the sound of the surging waves. Huh. The bearded Tung Shan laughed even louder. The surrounding 3,000 soldiers felt their ears rumble. What's your name? Tower Master, Huangfu Yujiang. The Tower Master looked at Tung Shan and asked, What's your name? A weakling isn't qualified to know my name. Tung Shan smiled. The Tower Master of the Sword Tower, Huangfu Yujiang, had a cold look in his eyes. His murderous intent was faintly discernible. The dark green, godly sword in his hand pointed at the beach. The godly sword in my hand is called Dark Blood. It likes to drink blood. When the sword is unsheathed, it will drink blood. As soon as he finished speaking, Huangfu Yujiang turned into a blurry white afterimage. Xiao! In the blink of an eye, the afterimage had covered a distance of over 10 zhang. The blurry green light headed straight for Tung Shan. Tung Shan stood on the beach. Suddenly, his left hand grabbed the spear shaft, while his right hand slid to the end of the spear shaft. It was a very simple movement like a wheel. His right hand shook and slightly pushed forward. Phew! The tip of the reincarnation spear drew a beautiful arc. The arc faintly had an earthy yellow halo circulating. Bang! A low and deep sound of collision rang out. Bang! 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 Continuous sounds of collisions could be heard. Every time the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, Huangfu Yujiang, stabbed with his sword, it would cause the seawater at the side to surge. The swift and fierce ice-cold sword chi shot out one after another, and whenever a soldier accidentally touched it, he or she would be frozen into a stick. Kacha! His entire body was frozen and cracked. Even his blood was frozen into ice. Retreat further away, quickly. The generals hastily shouted. A large number of soldiers frantically retreated far away, afraid that they would be affected. Clang! The strength of Tung Shan's spear was so great that even the reincarnation spear was bent. Subsequently, it rebounded and burst out. The Tower Master of the Sword Tower, Huangfu Yujiang, was shaken and flew back 7 to 8 zhang before falling. As for Tung Shan, he took 3 heavy steps back. Every step he took sank deep into the sand. Even the clothes on his body were covered with frost. He seemed to be in a sorry state. Huangfu Yujiang seemed to be very carefree. However, Tung Shan had a smile on his face. Huangfu Yujiang, on the other hand, had a solemn expression. Good sword art. Tung Shan laughed heartily. Good spear art. Huangfu Yujiang said in a deep voice. The 3,000 soldiers who were watching from afar were stunned when they saw this scene. What was this? Could it be that the mysterious expert strength was on par with the Tower Master of the Sword Tower? The hundreds of soldiers who had previously made things difficult for Tung Shan felt a chill in their hearts. They were really provoking a super expert who was on par with the Tower Master of the Sword Tower. They were really tired of living. Huangfu Yujiang. Tung Shan looked at his opponent from afar and said, I admit your strength. You are qualified to know my name. Listen carefully. Huangfu Yujiang raised his eyebrows and looked at Tung Shan. The 3,000 soldiers in the distance pricked up their ears. They all wanted to know the name of this super expert who was on par with the Tower Master of the Sword Tower. In the future, They would have the capital to brag or brag to their sons. My name is Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan's voice was loud and clear. Tung Qingshan. He is called Tung Qingshan. This Tung Qingshan is really powerful. The 3,000 soldiers immediately started discussing excitedly. They all firmly remember the name Tung Qingshan in their minds. Tung Qingshan? Huangfu Yujiang frowned and remembered this name deeply. This was the first time he, Huangfu Yujiang, returned without success after he had mastered the supreme 9 sword forms of the Bright Moon Sword Codex. Not a single one of the 9 strongest sword forms had injured his opponent. In front of Tung Qingshan's long spear, Huangfu Yujiang felt like he was facing a tall mountain that he couldn't move. This Huangfu Yujiang sword art is really powerful. Tung Qingshan recalled the scene just now and lowered his head to look at the frost on his clothes. Every sword move was terrifyingly sharp. If it wasn't for my powerful transmutation unity law spear art, a few bloody holes would have appeared on my body. This Huangfu Yujiang is worthy of being the #1 expert of the Bright Moon Island. He is almost the same as the #1 godly general of the god of Heaven Mountain, Boralimu. Tung Qingshan immediately laughed loudly and said, Huangfu Yujiang, after receiving a few moves of your sword art, you can also try my spear art. The laughter was still echoing. Tung Qingshan suddenly dashed out. A green afterimage flashed, and the reincarnation spear appeared in front of Huangfu Yujiang like a swimming dragon coming out of the water. Tung Qingshan's right arm bulged out of his clothes. An earthy yellow, flowing light permeated his right arm. His right hand that was holding the spear suddenly exerted force. Buzz! The tip of the spear instantly rotated. It was as if it could drill through space. Silver lightning flashed. Whoosh! Huangfu Yujiang's face was solemn. The deep green dark blood godly sword in his hand moved agilely and unexpectedly blocked the tip of Tung Qingshan's spear. Clang! Tung Qingshan's hands became slightly numb, and he was forced to take a step back. Huangfu Yujiang also took 2 steps back. The powerful force that burst out caused the sandy beach around Tung Qingshan and Huangfu Yujiang to be nearly 1 chi deep. This Huangfu Yujiang is really powerful. He can actually block my toxic dragon drill. Reduce the power and increase the speed. Tung Qingshan's face darkened. The reincarnation spear moved like a flood dragon and stirred again. Since the last time he fought with the divine bird Blue Luan, Tung Qingshan had been thinking about this problem. Although he didn't have a big breakthrough, after reducing the power by 30 to 40%, his speed would still increase by a lot. Whoosh! 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 The rotating tip of the spear stabbed towards Huangfu Yujiang again and again. Whoosh! Huangfu Yujiang was very steady. The dark blood godly sword also moved agilely and swiftly to block. Huangfu Yujiang was obviously very confident in his defense. Clang! 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 A series of colliding sounds could be heard. Every move of Tung Qingshan's toxic dragon drill was blocked by Huangfu Yujiang. The strangest thing was, there were a few streams of water on the beach that were swept into Huangfu Yujiang's sword shadow. The fleeting sword shadow flashed, and the streams of water formed a strange circle. No matter how Tung Qingshan attacked, he couldn't break through the defense of this sword art. It was as terrifying as Tung Qingshan's transmutation unity law spear art. This sword art. As Tung Qingshan watched, an idea suddenly flashed in his mind. He was ecstatic. This sword art contains the water elemental Tao. I have to fight with him for a while. Maybe my water element fist will have a breakthrough. Chapter 315. On the beach, the 3,000 soldiers carefully watched the scene from afar. The green and white phantoms fought from the beach to the distant sea surface. The sea of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents was turbulent, but the 2 super experts could fight on the surface of the water. The violent energy continued to spread out in all directions, and a large number of waves and splashes also exploded. This person called Tung Shan is actually so powerful. The general with the surname Liu clenched his teeth, and his eyes turned red. Brother Liu, this Tung Shan is too powerful. Even the tower master couldn't take him down. You should stop. A tall general at the side consoled. At this moment, clop, clop, clop. One by one, experts with sharp swords on their backs arrived at the beach on mounts that looked like war horses. Their mounts had 4 thick and powerful hooves, long fur, and 2 curved horns on their heads. These were the top mounts of Bright Moon Island, horned beasts. The one with the most horned beasts was naturally the Sword Tower. As for the 18 generals' residences, only a few people owned them. Tower Master. Dozens of experts sat on the horned beasts and looked at the 2 figures on the sea surface in shock. They didn't expect that there was actually someone who could fight with their Tower Master to a draw. The leader of this group of people was an expert. His temples were white, and his face looked like it was carved from stone. There was a green long sword embroidered on the left side of his chest. Greetings, Elder. The 3 generals came over and bowed respectfully. What happened? Who is the person fighting with the Tower Master? The old man shouted anxiously. Elder. The general with the surname Liu immediately bowed respectfully. That person is called Tung Shan, and he isn't from Bright Moon Island. He sailed his ship to Bright Moon Island and was extremely rude and unreasonable. He caused many soldiers to die, and even my martial arts were destroyed by him. When the Tower Master came over, he spoke rudely to the Tower Master and even attacked him. The 2 generals at the side were slightly startled, but they didn't say anything. This person is so arrogant. The old man's face darkened, and he looked at the distant sea. The 2 great experts who were fighting on the sea actually separated. Above the sea, Tung Shan and Huangfu Yujiang stood on the sea and didn't sink. Why did you stop? Tung Shan's eyes were burning. Huangfu Yujiang frowned and looked at Tung Shan. Tung Shan, I can't break your spear technique, but you can't break my sword art. Moreover, I see that you only use that one move. Since neither of us can win, why waste time? Tung Shan was speechless. Could he tell his opponent, I'm trying to sense the concept of your sword art and seek a breakthrough in my water element fist? Huangfu Yujiang, what sword art is this? Tung Shan asked. A look of reverence appeared on Huangfu Yujiang's face. This is the Bright Moon Sword technique, created by the 3rd-generation patriarch of the Sword Tower. He cultivated diligently by the sea for more than 10 years. After a moment of enlightenment, he created it. Tung Shan's heart thumped. Created by the seaside? It's not strange that it contains the water elemental Tao. Tung Shan thought to himself. Huangfu Yujiang. Tung Shan said, I wonder, can I have a look at the Bright Moon Sword technique? Huangfu Yujiang's facial expression changed as he looked at Tung Shan. Of course, I don't want to look at the circulation method of the innate true origin or the various comprehensions. I just want to take a look at the contents of the Bright Moon Sword technique about the defensive sword art you just used. Tung Shan smiled and said, in return, I can show you the concept of my defensive spear art. Huangfu Yujiang somewhat understood that the person in front of him should be that kind of ascetic cultivator. He's even willing to show the concept of his ultimate move to others. No wonder he would drift on the sea and cultivate diligently. He's really a madman. Huangfu Yujiang thought to himself. That's the ultimate move of the Sword Tower. It can't be taught to outsiders. Huangfu Yujiang shook his head and said, although I'm the Tower Lord, I can't go against it. Tung Shan, I can't capture you. You should leave. Can't be taught to outsiders. Tung Shan glanced at Huangfu Yujiang. Phew. Tung Shan walked on the waves of the sea and transformed into a blurry phantom. He dashed on the sea surface for a distance of over 100 zhong, then leaped up and directly landed on the tungstenwood vessel. Little June, let's go. Tung Shan shouted loudly, his voice resounding to the 9 heavens. Screech, the whole gale eagle swooped down from the sky. The purple-clothed girl, sitting on the eagle's back, was like a fairy. The strong air pressure and strong wind caused a large amount of sand on the beach to fly in all directions. Many soldiers at the side could only lower their heads and cover their eyes. Soon after, the demonic beast and the girl landed on the deck of the tungstenwood vessel. Big brother Tung Ching Shan, if we continue to fight, the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower will probably run out of true origin. Li Jun looked at Tung Ching Shan. Yes, but Tung Ching Shan shook his head and said, he won't be so stupid as to wait for his true origin to run out and then be killed by me. Once his true origin is left with 10 to 20%, Huangfu Yujiang will probably escape by relying on Qin Gong. In terms of Qin Gong, I am still inferior to him. Tung Ching Shan also gasped in admiration. In terms of strength, the number 1 expert of the Bright Moon Island could be ranked in the top 3 of the heavenly ranking in the land of the 9 prefectures. Let's go. Tung Ching Shan rowed the long oars. Voila! The tungstenwood vessel rapidly rowed towards the southeast. With the strength of Tung Ching Shan's arms, the 2 long oars were able to move swiftly and powerfully. The tungstenwood vessel went against the current and continuously advanced towards the southeast. On the beach, a large number of people watched the tungstenwood vessel leave from afar. Tower Lord. The group of experts led by the old man stood behind Huangfu Yujiang. Huangfu Yujiang, who was wearing a loose white cloak and holding a dark green godly sword in his hand, looked at the departing tungstenwood vessel and exclaimed in his heart, why does Tung Ching Shan's innate true origin seem to be endless? My innate true origin has been depleted by 70% after the intense battle with me. He guessed that it was about the same. But for such a big ship to go against the current, it would require a lot of strength. His consumption of true essence is also very fast. How could it? Tower Master, the 9 rhythm treacherous currents are swift. It's impossible for the ship to go against the current and rush out of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents, the elder said with a frown. Those 2, yes, even a Golden Dan innate expert would not be able to row a boat away. Huangfu Yujiang said coldly, the 9 rhythm treacherous currents is a few hundred miles long. If we advance diagonally, it will be more than 1,000 miles. At the fiercest point, there was no way to paddle. They could only dive into the water to drag the boat forward. If they wanted to leave, they would need 2 Golden Dan innate experts to take turns to rest and recover their innate true origin. It's impossible for a single person to leave the 9 rhythm treacherous currents. Bright Moon Island, generation after generation. Regarding the 9 rhythm treacherous currents, it had already been determined that 2 Golden Dan innate experts were needed to leave by boat. The entire Bright Moon Island only had a population of 10 million. Sometimes the entire island would only have 1 or 2 Golden Dan innate experts. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to leave. Tung Ching Shan pulled the iron chain and swiftly swam on the turbulent sea. The tungstenwood vessel was also being pulled by him, continuously advancing towards the southeast direction. It's almost impossible to row the boat out. Tung Ching Shan pulled the iron chain and thought to himself, the 9 rhythm treacherous currents is the fiercest point of every rhythm. The current is extremely fast. In order for the tungstenwood vessel to move forward, the oars must reach the same level as my reincarnation spear. Only then would it be able to withstand the speed and explosive force. Using star pattern steel to make a giant long, or too extravagant. It's better to drag the boat in the water. It's much simpler. Tung Ching Shan swam very fast in the water. After a long time, when the tungstenwood vessel advanced to the flat area of the 2nd rhythm and discovered a shallow area, Tung Ching Shan's dual flames covered the blazing innate true origin, causing the iron chain to soften. Soon after, he twisted the iron chain into a simple iron anchor and hooked it onto a rock under the sea. The tungstenwood vessel was fixed in place. Tung Ching Shan leaped from the sea and landed on the deck. Big brother Tung, why did you stop? Li Jun was slightly puzzled. The beach is several dozen li away from here. Tung Ching Shan looked towards the north and said, even if someone is on the Bright Moon Island, it's impossible for them to see the tungstenwood vessel several dozen li away. Yes, Li Jun nodded. If it was several li away, An inner strength expert would still be able to see the tungsten wood vessel with its size. However, it was several dozen li away, so it was impossible to see it. Little June. Tung Shan smiled as he looked at Li Jun. Do you remember what Shangwan Quan said before? The entire Bright Moon Island has a forbidden area. Of course I remember. Li Jun nodded and said, the large mountain in the southeast is the forbidden area, and the large mountain in the northeast is where the sword tower is located. That Shangwan Quan also said that only the most extraordinary experts of the sword tower can occasionally enter the forbidden area. Big Brother Tung, what do you think this is for? Tung Shan smiled slightly and said, Little June, you said that only the most extraordinary experts can occasionally enter the forbidden area. Can you guess what's in the forbidden area? That goes without saying. Only experts can occasionally enter, so it's very likely that there's some powerful cultivation technique hidden there, or some extraordinary treasure. Li Jun said, Yes. Tung Shan smiled and looked towards the north. Little June, tell Little Gray to carry us on its back and fly towards the Bright Moon Island. Let's go take a look at the forbidden area. Go to the forbidden area? Although Li Jun was surprised by Tung Shan's decision, she was also slightly curious. Immediately, Li Jun talked to the whole Gale Eagle, who was at the side, and the whole Gale Eagle cried out. Big Brother Tung, it even took the opportunity to ask for the iron leaf fruit. Li Jun said with a smile, Just give it to eat. Oh, there's still an iron leaf fruit in my bag, although a small piece has been dug out. Tung Shan immediately went into the cabin and took out a small piece of the iron leaf fruit and threw it at the whole Gale Eagle. The whole Gale Eagle excitedly raised its head and took a bite. Cracking sounds could be heard as it swallowed the fruit into its stomach. The whole Gale Eagle immediately spread its wings happily and hovered 2 zhang above the tungsten wood vessel. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tung Shan held the reincarnation spear and leaped onto the back of the whole Gale Eagle at the same time as Li Jun. The whole Gale Eagle's body was not as big as the fierce Gale Divine Eagle, so Tung Shan and Li Jun could only snuggle together. Screech! The whole Gale Eagle cried out happily and soared into the sky. Within the layer of clouds, the whole Gale Eagle was flying. Tung Shan and Li Jun were on the whole Gale Eagle's back. Through the blurry clouds, Tung Shan looked down. The 2 towering mountain peaks were very conspicuous. Huangfu Yujiang, if you don't show it to me, do you think I won't be able to see it? Tung Shan's gaze fell upon the towering mountain peak in the southeast direction. Little Gray, go down. Tung Shan lightly patted the whole Gale Eagle's feathers and pointed towards the towering mountain peak in the southeast direction. The whole Gale Eagle obediently nodded its head. Phew! It immediately dived down towards the mountain peak in the forbidden area. Chapter 316. The mountain peak of the forbidden area was 10,000 zhang high. The top of the mountain was covered with all kinds of weeds and vines. It was obvious that no one had been here for a long time. Ooh! A gray figure descended from the sky. It was the whole Gale Eagle that was carrying Tung Shan, and Li Jun had also informed the whole Gale Eagle that they had secretly entered the forbidden area. Therefore, it was also very vigilant. Tung Shan and Li Jun jumped off the eagle's back. Big Brother Tung, there are no traces of footsteps in the surroundings. No one should have been here. Li Jun said with a frown. The entire mountain is a forbidden area. Tung Shan glanced at the surroundings and said in a low voice, However, it's impossible for the entire mountain to hide the sword art manuals or treasures. It should be somewhere in the mountains. It was impossible for the sword tower to imagine that someone could descend from the sky. Therefore, there is no one guarding the peak. Now let's go down carefully. You and the whole Gale Eagle follow behind me for 10 zhang. Remember, don't make any noise, Tung Shan said in a low voice. Yes. Li Jun nodded. At the same time, she whispered to the whole Gale Eagle at the side in the beast language. The whole Gale Eagle was a Xian Tian level demonic beast. It was not difficult for it to not make any sound. Let's go, Tung Shan said in a low voice. Immediately, Tung Shan walked in front and Li Jun and the whole Gale Eagle followed Tinzhong behind. The whole Gale Eagle and Tung Qingshan were agile in their movements, and Li Jun was also at the peak of internal strength. She was as agile as a fairy in the wild forest. Forbidden area, halfway up the mountain. On a mountain road that had been trampled by people all year round, a young man in a green robe was walking on the mountain road with a basket in each hand. There were beads of sweat on his forehead as he muttered, "Humph, senior brother, and the others all think that I'm easy to bully, so they asked me to deliver food every day." It was a long way up and down the mountain. Moreover, the 4 old monsters guarding the forbidden area were also hot-tempered. I heard that a junior brother was killed by these 4 old monsters last year. It wasn't a good thing to deliver food to the guardian elder of the forbidden area. On the Bright Moon Island, the 18 generals' residences had been fighting against each other for many years. As for the Sword Tower, it was superior because it had no enemies. That was why the infighting was fierce. There were many clans and factions in the Sword Tower, and there were also some people from the 18 generals' residences. This caused the power struggle in the Sword Tower to be more serious. And these new disciples had the lowest status. "We're here." The green-robed youth immediately saw a stone tablet on the mountain path ahead. On the stone tablet were 2 large blood-red words, "Forbidden Area." The green-robed youth stood in front of the stone tablet and did not dare to take a step forward. He shouted loudly, "Elder, A stooped old man with silvery white brows walked out from the entrance of the Forbidden Area's abode with a gloomy gaze. After staying in the Forbidden Area for so many years, the Guardian Elder's character had become eccentric. "Give me the food." "Yes." The azure-robed youth immediately handed it over. The hunchbacked old man took the 2 baskets and casually flipped through them. He sniffed and snorted. "Little guy, bring 2 more bottles of wine tomorrow." "Yes." The green-robed youth immediately responded. The Guardian Elders had all reached the peak of the post-liminary realm. Normally, they would be fine even if they didn't eat or drink for 3 to 5 days. While they were on guard duty, it was enough for them to eat and drink well every day. Moreover, while they were guarding the Forbidden Area, it was a good opportunity for these Guardian Elders to cultivate peacefully. Usually, the elders who were nearing the end of their lifespan would guard the abode for a few years. If they could reach the innate realm, they would live for another 50 years. If they failed, they would die. Under such torture, it was not strange for some elders to become eccentric. Phew! Fortunately, it's not that one-eyed elder. The green-robed youth secretly heaved a sigh of relief and went down the mountain along the mountain path. The hunchbacked old man carried the 2 baskets and walked into the abode. Neither of them realized that a pair of eyes was watching them from the vines a few dozen zhang away. After the green-robed youth left, that figure appeared at the entrance of the abode. This is the forbidden area of the high mountain. The Sword Tower is probably at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain path is heavily guarded. But there is no one on the way down from the mountain. Tung Qingshan looked at the dark cave abode and thought to himself, there are obviously experts guarding the forbidden area's abode. At this time, Li Jun and the whole Gale Eagle cautiously came to Tung Qingshan's side. "Little Jun, I will go in first. You can go after me," Tung Qingshan said in a low voice. "Okay." Li Jun only nodded. Immediately, Tung Qingshan held the reincarnation spear in his hand and carefully walked into the abode. The inside of the abode was dark, but the cave was very square. It was obvious that it had been artificially carved. Faint voices could be heard from inside. "Old vulture, come and eat. If you don't come, there will be no more." "Fourth brother, why do I feel that the 16th and 17th sword of the 18 nightmare swords are so awkward?" An aged voice entered Tung Qingshan's ears. A smile appeared on the corner of Tung Qingshan's mouth. He was familiar with the spacious abode. After a turn, he walked along a passageway. Walking in the passageway, Tung Qingshan already saw the figures of the elders who were gathered together and eating. Phew! Phew! Tung Qingshan's figure flashed and appeared in the spacious house in the belly of the mountain. The 4 elders who were eating were shocked to see this sudden guest. "Who are you?" One of the tall and strong elders put down his bowl and chopsticks and shouted, "How dare you trespass into the forbidden area?" In Bright Moon Island, the sword tower dominated. After generations, the sword tower was used to it. They were not vigilant against external enemies. Because other than the occasional sea demonic beasts, they had no external enemies. Fourth brother, why are you talking nonsense with him? One of the one-eyed elders said coldly. At the same time, he touched his waist, and a flexible, curved silver light shone. Like a silver snake, it pierced between Tung Qingshan's eyebrows. The other three guardian elders also grabbed their weapons, in case the one-eyed elder couldn't deal with his opponent. The sword tower had a strict order. Those who trespass into the forbidden area will be killed without mercy. Tung Qingshan's face was calm as his right hand moved slightly. Phew, 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 phew. The reincarnation spear instantly split into four. For silver lightning bolts pierced through the throats of the four guardian elders at the same time. Ah, ah. The four guardian elders covered their throats with their eyes wide open. Blood gushed out from the bloody holes. The eyes of the four guardian elders were filled with fear and horror. They couldn't believe that the four guardian elders, couldn't even shout for help in front of their opponent. Too fast. The four guardian elders' corpses fell down powerlessly. Some fell to the ground, some knocked against the wooden table, and knocked over the bowls and chopsticks. Pah! Wah! The sound of bowls shattering and the sound of wine spilling onto the ground resounded. The entire house was filled with the strong smell of wine. The smell of wine also contained a strong smell of blood. Phew! The whole Gale Eagle and Li Jun followed the passage and arrived here. As soon as she entered the house, Li Jun saw the four elders lying on the ground. Their eyes were still wide open, and they had died with grievances. There's no one left in this forbidden area. Tung Qingshan said calmly, Little Jun, let's search along the two ends and see if there are any treasures. Even the innate experts guarding the so-called forbidden area would die in front of Tung Qingshan, let alone these four guardian elders. Even the number one expert of the Bright Moon Island, Huangfu Yujiang, would be exhausted by Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan would also exhaust his true origin, and he could only escape. Okay, Li Jun nodded. Immediately, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun searched the secret rooms at the side. These secret rooms all had straw mats and quilts. In one of the secret rooms, Tung Qingshan looked at the stone carvings of sword moves on the wall. Looking at the stone carvings, some of them are more than 100 years old, and some of them are newly carved. Tung Qingshan nodded to himself. Generation after generation of sword arts, carving their thoughts on the stone walls. Countless experts have accumulated this knowledge. Everyone on the Bright Moon Island practices sword arts. No wonder the Tower Lord's sword art is so powerful. In terms of sword techniques, no sect in the land of the 9 prefectures had a better foundation than the Sword Tower. There were many secret rooms in the belly of the mountain. Big Brother Tung, Big Brother Tung. Tung Qingshan had only been searching for a while when Li Jun came. Tung Qingshan looked at her. Big Brother Tung, follow me. Li Jun said hastily, I found a place. Oh. Tung Qingshan curiously followed Li Jun and advanced along the winding mountain path. It must be said that the sword tower had dug out half of the mountain because the mountain path was really long. Big Brother Tung, there's a very spacious hall in front. Li Jun led Tung Qingshan for about 100 zhong and pointed to the front. The whole Gale Eagle was in the hall. Tung Qingshan also stepped into the spacious hall. He saw that there were countless sword art carvings on the stone walls of the hall. 18 flowing wind swordsmanship. Heavenly thunder sword art. Slithering snake sword. Tung Qingshan looked at the various exquisite sword arts. These sword arts all contain their own concepts. Why isn't there the Bright Moon Sword Codex that Huangfu Yujiang mentioned? This caused Tung Qingshan to frown. That's right. That's the most powerful technique of the Sword Tower. The elite disciples wouldn't easily see it. Tung Qingshan shook his head, feeling slightly regretful. Although those exquisite sword arts were powerful, to Tung Qingshan, who already stood at the doorstep of Tao, They could at most broaden his horizons and were not very useful. Suddenly, Tung Qingshan's gaze stopped at a side door beside the hall. A few lines of densely packed words were carved on the mountain wall beside the door. Anyone who enters the forbidden area and reaches the innate realm can go to the celestial jade annulus. This was left behind by the benefactor of the first martial ancestor of the Sword Tower, Senior Lee. The third martial ancestor once studied the celestial jade annulus and comprehended the bright moon sword codex. If you have not reached the innate realm, you must not look at the celestial jade annulus. It is not beneficial, but harmful. This line of words caused Tung Qingshan to be extremely surprised. Big Brother Tung, what is this celestial jade annulus? It actually says that if you have not reached the innate realm, it will be harmful if you look at it. I have to believe it. Tung Qingshan said in a low voice, "Little June, wait outside first." With this, Tung Qingshan walked through the side door and went inside. After just a few zhang, Tung Qingshan entered a spacious, naturally formed cave. On one of the mountain walls of the cave, there was a faint azure glow circulating. The 4 lines of words were written in a flamboyant style, causing Tung Qingshan to hold his breath. The rainbows are the clothes, the winds are the horses, the monarchs of the clouds come down one after another. The tigers beat the zither, the Luans return to their chariots, the immortals line up like hemp. Chapter 317. Tung Qingshan could almost instantly feel the artistic conception contained in the 4 lines of vigorous and powerful poems on the Jade Mountain wall, which were flowing with azure light. Once he touched upon the artistic conception, boom, like a flood bursting through a dam, the 4 lines of 30 words contained an intense and terrifying artistic conception that was like a monstrous flood, instantly drowning Tung Qingshan. Although Tung Qingshan's spirit was powerful, at this moment he was completely immersed in the artistic conception of the 4 lines of poems. Tung Qingshan's eyes saw dozens of indistinct cyan figures brandishing their swords. The sword arts were ethereal, as if they were following the trajectory of the heavens and earth. However, it made Tung Qingshan feel that it was like a carpenter's axe art. It was simple and nothing special. At this moment, Tung Qingshan's surroundings were filled with green figures, and they were all practicing various kinds of sword arts. Although it was called sword art, it was more like a sword dance. If someone came to this natural cave, they would see that Tung Qingshan was holding the reincarnation spear and staring at the mountain wall. He just stared, motionlessly for a whole hour. Clang! A crisp sound rang out. Li Jun, who was in the passageway, was so shocked that she hastily took a few steps inside. She immediately saw the reincarnation spear fall to the ground and roll to the side of the mountain wall before stopping. As for Tung Qingshan, his right index finger and middle finger formed the shape of a sword, and each move he made seemed to be practicing some kind of unfathomable sword art. Tung Qingshan's figure flashed as he practiced the sword with his fingers. The moves were extremely swift and fierce. Whoosh! Because the moves were too swift and fierce, although Tung Qingshan didn't use the innate true origin, waves of powerful qi still shot out in all directions. Clang! Clang! The powerful qi struck the jade annulus with the 4 lines of words, emitting a crisp sound. However, the jade annulus wasn't damaged at all. Pooh! The mountain rocks beside Li Jun were shattered by the powerful qi, and some crushed stones rolled down. When did Big Brother Tang's sword art become so powerful? Li Jun was astonished. Could it be related to the celestial jade annulus? Although Li Jun thought so, she didn't dare to look at the celestial jade annulus. Well, it's not a bad thing to have one more skill. Li Jun looked at Tung Qingshan's moving figure in the cave. I'll wait a little longer. This wait took a long time. The sun rose from the center of the mountain until the sky turned dark. Even the cave was pitch black. However, as the strength qi crisscrossed, the sounds of it colliding with the mountain walls became more and more concentrated. Late at night, Li Jun had long since hidden in the depths of the mountain path, fearing that she would be accidentally injured by Tung Shan. In the darkness, Li Jun's small face also had a trace of blood. This was a wound left behind when she was careless and a flying stone brushed past her face. She continued to stare at the direction of the cave. Big Brother Tang's sword art is getting stronger and stronger. Just the strength of the chi force is continuously increasing. Li Jun admired Tung Shan even more. Suddenly, something's wrong. A deep and furious roar suddenly came from the cave. Big Brother Tung. Li Jun was shocked and hastily ran towards the cave. Although the sky was dark, the jade annulus emitted a green halo, which was enough for an inner strength expert to see everything in the cave clearly. Big Brother Tung, what's wrong with you? Li Jun was slightly shocked and angry. At this moment, Tung Shan clenched his teeth. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and his face was covered in sweat. He looked like a crazy beast. I'm fine. Tung Shan squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. Big Brother Tung. Li Jun was even more worried. With his face covered in sweat, Tung Shan stared at the jade annulus like a crazy wild wolf. No matter how excellent and powerful your sword art is, this is not the path I want to walk. This is not what I want. Even if you can help me reach the emptiness realm, I don't want it either. Tung Shan's gaze was unprecedentedly firm. Outsiders didn't know what had happened in the past 10 to 12 hours. Big Brother Tung, what happened? Li Jun hugged Tung Shan's arm and asked nervously. Tung Shan turned his head and looked at Li Jun. He smiled and said, "It's okay. This is actually a good thing for me." A good thing? Li Jun couldn't believe that Tung Shan's previous behavior was a good thing. There are 4 lines of poetry on the celestial jade annulus. Tung Shan explained, "According to my estimation, this quatrain should have been written by an extremely powerful expert. It contains the concept of this expert's sword art. This is not a sword art, but the pure Tao of sword that this expert comprehended. This is his Tao of sword. In front of his Tao of sword, my previous comprehension is insignificant. I was completely immersed in his concept and his Tao of sword." Tung Shan's eyes shone as he said, "I have already touched the edge of Tao. Therefore, I was able to gradually comprehend the concept contained in this poem. If I cultivate here, I believe that in 3 to 5 years, I will definitely be able to step into the emptiness realm and become an emptiness realm expert." 3 to 5 years? Li Jun inhaled a breath of cold air. Tung Shan was only 18 years old. 3 to 5 years? An emptiness realm expert in his 20s? It was unbelievable. Big Brother Tung, this is a good thing. You can cultivate here. Or we could take this celestial jade annulus with us. Li Jun said hastily. She didn't care that the celestial jade annulus was a treasure of the sword tower. No. Tung Shan shook his head and said, "With my understanding of Tao, I can indeed reach the emptiness realm after comprehending the celestial jade annulus for a few years. However, the emptiness realm is an emptiness realm that uses a sword. It doesn't use a spear. Moreover, the Tao contained in the celestial jade annulus is the Tao that he comprehended. I'm only following the path that he walked. I have my own path. My weapon is the spear. It will always be the spear." Tung Shan's heart was as firm as a rock. Tung Shan was able to create the earth element fist and the water element fist. However, creating and learning other people's Tao were 2 different concepts. An expert who could create his own Tao. An expert who had a deeper understanding of Tao. If it was someone else, even if their spirit was strong enough to draw out the terrifying concept contained in the celestial jade annulus, they would not be able to withstand the concept. However, they simply couldn't withstand that intent, or rather, they couldn't comprehend it all. Tung Shan could even comprehend a small part of the traceless Tao of the heavens and earth. However, the concept of the sword art was right in front of him, making it much easier to comprehend. If Tung Shan really concentrated on cultivating for a few years, he would be able to break through the barrier and reach the emptiness realm within a few years. It would definitely not be difficult. However, I want to create a path that is truly suitable for the internal martial arts. I want to create a path that belongs to the spear art, a path that belongs to me, Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan lowered his head and picked up the reincarnation spear that he had let go of. When Tung Qingshan lowered his head, he saw a line of words on the celestial jade annulus. I Li Tai Bai broke through the emptiness realm with one sword on the bright moon island. I left my sword song here for the fated one. When Tung Qingshan saw this line of words, his mind exploded. Li Tai Bai? Tung Qingshan was extremely shocked. Poetic sword god Li Tai Bai? One of the four omnipotent experts, Li Tai Bai. Tung Qingshan was completely stunned. He originally thought that the four lines of words were left by an emptiness realm expert or an insightful emptiness realm expert. A thought flashed through his mind. Could it be left behind by an omnipotent expert? However, Tung Qingshan didn't dare to think too much and eliminated that thought. Big brother Tung, what's wrong? Li Jun asked in surprise. She still didn't dare to look at the words on the celestial jade annulus. Look here. Tung Qingshan pointed at the line of words. Tung Qingshan knew that the four lines of the poem should have contained Li Tai Bai's Tao of Sword. Therefore, it also contained Li Tai Bai's power of the world. After so many years, an ordinary mountain wall had become a jade mountain wall. This was the wonder of the power of the world. This was something only the omnipotent experts possessed. I can't look at it. Li Jun was slightly hesitant. Look here, it's fine. You can't look at the four lines of words for now. If you trigger the sword intent contained within, your mind won't be able to withstand it. It will cause great harm to your spirit. You might not be able to reach the innate realm in your entire life. Tung Qingshan said. Li Jun nodded and looked in the direction that Tung Qingshan pointed. Li Jun looked and was stunned. Li Tai Bai. When Li Jun saw the three words, she also didn't dare to believe it. Emperor Yu, Heavenly Emperor Ing Zheng of the Qin Mountains, Poetic Sword God Li Tai Bai, and Martial Ancestor Shiga. These four omnipotent experts were the four people who stood at the peak of the world of the 9 prefectures for countless years. These four omnipotent experts were all omnipotent experts of different eras. However, without exception, they had all reached the omnipotent realm. This poem was left behind by Senior Poetic Sword God. Tung Qingshan exclaimed, one of the legendary 4 great divine codices, Green Lotus Sword Song, is probably a bit more complicated than these 4 lines of words. It contains more of the process of post-liminary and innate realm cultivation. However, Senior Poetic Sword God Tao of Sword is contained in this poem. To be more precise, it's a sword song. Tung Qingshan looked at the line of words. Rainbows are the clothes. The wind is the horse. The lords of the clouds come down one after another. The tiger beats the zither. The Luan returns to the chariot. The immortals line up like hemp. Tung Qingshan was filled with admiration. In the past, Li Tai Bai, who had reached the insightful emptiness realm, flew with the wind and wandered the boundless world. He got to know some residents of the Bright Moon Island and finally comprehended and broke through, reaching the omnipotent realm. He also left behind some simple cultivation methods for the residents of the Bright Moon Island. The residents of the Bright Moon Island cultivated according to their cultivation methods. In addition, the third martial ancestor comprehended the Bright Moon Sword Codex from the 4 lines of words on the celestial jade annulus and reached the emptiness realm. At this moment, Tung Qingshan discovered that on the other side of the cave, there were some rocks blocking the cave. Could it be that there's another passage? Tung Qingshan walked over, his legs turning into a blur as he kicked the passage. A series of rumbling sounds rang out, and a large number of rocks were sent flying. It revealed a platform outside the passageway. Outside the platform was a bottomless cliff. So it's here. Tung Qingshan walked out of the cave and arrived at the edge of the platform. Li Jun was also standing beside him. A cold wind blew past. In front of Tung Qingshan and the others was a bottomless cliff. Tung Qingshan raised his head and looked around. He could even vaguely see the edge of another mountain peak. In the past, the poetic sword god must have flown here from a high altitude and entered this cave from the platform on the cliff halfway up the mountain. He comprehended the pinnacle of the Tao of sword in this insightful emptiness realm. Tung Qingshan vaguely saw the edge of the other mountain peak. When he thought of the fact that the other mountain peak was as tall as the one in the forbidden area and that the adjacent mountain walls were very steep, he couldn't help but think, when the poetic sword god comprehended the Tao of sword, could he have slashed his sword from a high altitude and split the mountain into two? That's why there are these two mountains. Chapter 3:18. On the slightly protruding platform of the cliff, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun stood side by side. The piercingly cold mountain wind blew past. Li Jun's body swayed, and she couldn't help but take a step back. Her face was slightly pale. Huh. Tung Qingshan turned to look at Li Jun and said with a smile, "Little Jun, you almost fell down just now. It's so high. If he fell, no one would save him. He would definitely lose his life." Li Jun was slightly afraid as she said, "Big brother Tung, don't stand at the edge." Although Li Jun had interacted with Tung Qingshan for a long time, she did not know that the experts of the internal martial arts could save their lives even if they jumped off a cliff. "Me?" Tung Qingshan smiled. "Let's go back to the cave." With the reincarnation spear in his hand, Tung Qingshan returned to the natural cave. He raised his head and looked at the mountain wall that had already turned into an azure jade. "Big brother Tung, when are we leaving?" Li Jun asked. "Leave?" Tung Qingshan shook his head. "We have nothing to do here. Why don't we leave?" Li Jun was slightly surprised. "Big brother Tung, didn't you say that the concept contained within the celestial jade annulus is the concept of the poetic sword god, Li Taibai's sword Tao? Didn't you not want to learn his sword Tao? Why are you still here?" Tung Qingshan raised his head and looked at the 4 lines of flamboyant calligraphy calmly. "Little Jun, I told you before that I'm going to the northern sea continent to find the godly axe mountain and watch Emperor use 36 splitting mountain forms. The 36 splitting mountain forms is a very powerful axe art. I won't learn axe arts and won't walk the same path as Emperor Yu. Why did I go even though I knew? It's because all techniques are interlinked. Whether it was the Tao of calligraphy, the Tao of painting, or the Tao of zither, when one reached the pinnacle, everything would become the heavenly Tao. Therefore, I want to observe the 36 splitting mountain forms. I hope to learn from the 36 splitting mountain forms and gain some enlightenment." Tung Qingshan's eyes shone brightly in the dark cave. Although the 4 lines of poetic sword god Li Taibai's Green Lotus Sword Song are about the Tao of the sword, but at the same time, it can be used as a reference. With heaven and earth as the teacher, one can comprehend the heavenly Tao. However, the difficulty is extremely high, and the 4 lines of words on the celestial jade annulus all contain the sword Tao concept of Senior Li Taibai. Emperor, you also told me that if I use the splitting mountain axe, I can clearly feel the 36 splitting mountain forms, and it will be easier for me to learn from them. Tung Qingshan smiled as he said, "If I learn from them, I will be able to comprehend the heavenly Tao faster." So that's how it is. Li Jun started to understand. The heavenly Tao was indescribable. There was no way to describe it with words. What was needed was comprehension. The comprehension of these 4 supreme experts was extremely precious. No wonder the Sword Tower's swordsmanship has reached such a high level. Tung Qingshan exclaimed in admiration. This Senior Li is also very powerful. At least, his Tao of calligraphy is extremely high. Just these 4 lines of words contain his sword Tao. For example, Patriarch Shiga of the Buddhist sect. If you asked Patriarch Shiga to use poetry and calligraphy and infuse the Tao that he had comprehended into it, it would be difficult for him. Asking Tung Qingshan to use calligraphy to infuse the Tao was also difficult. After all, he didn't understand calligraphy. "Big brother Tung, did you comprehend anything?" Li Jun asked expectantly. Senior Li's sword Tao is unfathomable. A smile appeared on Tung Qingshan's face as he said, "However, according to what I felt earlier, Senior Li Sword Dao should have started with the water element. The legendary poetic sword god Li Tai loved wine the most. He also liked to live in a place with water. Entering the Dao with the water element, Li Jun said in surprise. Yes. Firstly, it's my feeling. Secondly, Tung Qingshan smiled as he said, when I fought with the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, Huang Fu Yujiang, his bright moon sword codex contained the water element. The softness of water can resist all things, but the hardness of water can destroy everything. The third-generation martial ancestor of the Sword Tower is the same as me. You should have comprehended the initial stage of Senior Li's Sword Dao. He created the Bright Moon Sword Codex. One of the four supreme experts, Li Taibai's Sword Dao, at its initial stage, was the water element. Previously, I was involuntarily influenced by his concept and learned his sword art. Tung Qingshan smiled as he shook his head. If I let myself be, my Dao would be completely influenced. I'm afraid that I would never be able to improve my spear Dao. The consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, I bit the tip of my tongue and broke free from its influence. Li Jun was secretly shocked when she heard this. Tung Qingshan seemed to be very relaxed when he spoke. However, Li Jun couldn't forget the scene where Tung Qingshan's face was covered in sweat and the corner of his mouth was bleeding. Obviously, it was very difficult to break free from its influence. However, after going through this ordeal, my state of mind has become more resolute. Moreover, the biggest benefit is that I have a deeper understanding of the water element. Tung Qingshan smiled as he said, Little June, from today onwards, I plan to meditate here for a long time to comprehend Senior Li's sword art. At the same time, I want to improve my water element fist. Stay here for a long time? Li Jun was shocked. Yes, I want to meditate and cultivate in seclusion. Tung Qingshan nodded. Tung Qingshan knew very well that the celestial jade annulus, one of the four omnipotent experts, was a great opportunity for him. This time, cultivating on the Bright Moon Island would be much more effective than cultivating in the land of the 9 prefectures. Of course, in the future, he would go to the northern sea continent and cultivate on the Godly Axe Mountain. With the help of the Splitting Mountain Axe, Tung Qingshan's cultivation would be even better. However, Emperor Yu and Li Taibai's Dao were probably different. Tung Qingshan cultivated the water element fist. Using Li Taibai's Dao of Sword as a reference was naturally the wisest choice. Then, Li Jun hastily said, The people of the Sword Tower will probably send food here tomorrow. If the 4 elders don't appear, the people of the Sword Tower will definitely be suspicious. They might even send a large number of experts. We will be here. Don't worry. Tung Qingshan smiled as he said, With me here, even if 2 Huangfu Yujiangs came, I would still make him leave in a sorry state. Little June. Tung Qingshan looked at Li Jun and said, From tomorrow onwards, let the whole Gale Eagle bring you to the Tungstenwood Vessel or other places to eat. As for me, during my cultivation, I will only eat once every 10 days to half a month. When Li Jun heard this, she nodded and said, Big brother Tung, eating is a small matter. You don't have to worry. At the same time, Li Jun looked at Tung Qingshan. The long and arduous cultivation caused Tung Qingshan's long hair to drape over his shoulders and his face to be covered with stubble. He was completely different from the handsome young man she met for the first time. Li Jun sighed inwardly. From the famous handsome young man, Tung Qingshan grew step by step. Now, in the land of the 9 prefectures, no one under the emptiness realm could defeat Tung Qingshan. He was still in closed-door cultivation. Maybe in a few years, Big Brother Tung will become an emptiness realm expert, an existence like the god of heaven. He will become one of the strongest experts in the land of the 9 prefectures. Li Jun was filled with anticipation. Little Jun, I have one more thing to ask of you, Tung Qingshan said hastily. Li Jun stared at Tung Qingshan. I reckon that the people of the Sword Tower will come tomorrow. At that time, it will create a storm. After this matter is settled, I will be in closed-door cultivation. I hope that you can interrupt me every noon if I am still immersed in Senior Li's Tao of the Sword. The method is very simple. Just throw a rock at me. Tung Qingshan instructed just in case. Yes. Li Ju nodded. Tung Qingshan smiled and said, "Of course, if nothing unexpected happens, I will stop before noon every day." Tung Qingshan knew very well that he shouldn't immerse himself too deeply in the Tao of the Sword. Only when his own Tao improved would he be able to comprehend the Tao of the Sword at a deeper level without being affected. Now, I want to meditate. After Tung Qingshan finished speaking, he sat down cross-legged and placed the reincarnation spear on his knees to meditate. In his mind, part of the Tao of the Sword that he had comprehended previously appeared. He started to separate the concept of the water element and integrate it into his water element fist. The next day, the sun rose until noon. Everything was as Tung Qingshan had expected. The youth who delivered the food shouted at the entrance of the forbidden abode for a long time, but the 4 guardian elders did not appear. He immediately guessed that something big had happened. He was so scared that he immediately went to report. The forbidden abode had not had a big incident for a long time. There was no news of the 4 guardian elders. It was very likely that they were dead. This shocked the higher-ups of the sword tower. The forbidden abode was not important, but it wasn't. After all, the sword art carvings did not have any mental cultivation method or mnemonic chants. The most important sword art was not there. It was very important. The celestial jade annulus was something the entire sword tower needed. With the celestial jade annulus, the sword tower could only prosper. The sun hung high in the sky. It was very comfortable to bask in the cold sun. However, none of the experts of the sword tower felt comfortable. Russell, on the winding mountain path of the forbidden area, a large number of sword tower's powerhouses were rapidly rushing towards the forbidden area's abode. At the forefront of this group of people was the sword tower's master, Huangfu Yujiang. Beside him was a white-haired old man. This old man was the previous lord of the sword tower. He was also Huangfu Yujiang's teacher, Tianhong. When Huangfu Yujiang's strength surpassed his teacher, Tianhong automatically abdicated, and Huangfu Yujiang became the new lord of the sword tower. The rule of the sword tower was that the strongest person would be the lord. For thousands of years, no one has ever entered the forbidden abode. Tianhong had a worried look on his face. He said as he hurried along, "Ordinary inner force experts can't barge in at all in this forbidden cave abode. As for innate experts, there are only 6 or 7 innate experts in the entire Bright Moon Island. They are all members of the sword tower. If they want to view the celestial jade annulus, they can enter directly. There is no need to barge in and kill people." They didn't understand who would enter the celestial jade annulus. What I'm most worried about now is that the person who entered the forbidden abode will destroy the celestial jade annulus. Huangfu Yujiang's face was ashen. As he spoke, the group of people rushed to the entrance of the forbidden abode. The smell of blood. Huangfu Yujiang and his teacher, Tianhong, were the only 2 Golden Dan innate experts in the entire sword tower. They discovered the house where the 4 guardian elders died at the same time. They must have been killed at the same time. They didn't even have time to tell the people outside. Tianhong frowned. "It's a spear. The weapon that killed them was a spear." Huangfu Yujiang saw the bloody holes on the necks of the 4 great elders. The blood had long dried up. "It's really him." Huangfu Yujiang had already guessed the terrifying opponent who used a spear. "Lord!" The other experts of the sword tower also rushed in. Celestial jade annulus. Huangfu Yujiang's expression changed slightly. Phew! Phew! Huangfu Yujiang and Tianhong dashed toward the place where the celestial jade annulus was. Huangfu Yujiang and Tianhong couldn't help but stop in the great hall that was inscribed with a large number of sword arts. A large group of people behind them also stood at the side. Their gazes fell on the person who had been in the great hall for a long time. An azure long robe, a face full of beard stubble, and a shiny silver spear. Tung Qingshan. Huangfu Yujiang's gaze was as sharp as a sword as he squeezed out these 3 words from between his teeth. P.S. This is the first chapter. Get some monthly votes. Brothers with monthly votes, please support Tomato. Thank you. Chapter 319. In the dark and spacious main hall, the surrounding mountain walls were filled with sword art records left behind by generations of experts of the Sword Tower. At this moment, the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, Huangfu Yujiang, and his master, Tian Hong, brought the elite experts of the Sword Tower and stopped here because there was a terrifying enemy in front of them. Yujiang. Tian Hong looked at his disciple. Huangfu Yujiang and his master looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. This Ting Shan fought at the seaside. I couldn't catch him, but I didn't expect him to come to my Sword Tower's forbidden area. Huangfu Yujiang was furious and his eyes turned cold. He shouted angrily, Tung Shan, I didn't let the soldiers surround you at the seaside and let you leave safely. It's fine if you don't feel grateful, but I didn't expect you to kill my Sword Tower's elders and trespass into my forbidden area. What do you have to say? Huangfu Yujiang held his godly sword and his eyes turned cold. Feel grateful? Tung Shan was slightly startled. How could those soldiers come down to the sea to surround and kill him? In a real fight, although Huangfu Yujiang was strong, his true origin would be exhausted. He wouldn't be a match for him. How could he feel grateful? Huangfu Yujiang, I feel grateful. Tung Shan looked at Huangfu Yujiang carefully and suddenly understood. Huangfu Yujiang, as the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, was equivalent to the Emperor of the Bright Moon Island. He was high and mighty, and his words were like gold and jade. Maybe Huangfu Yujiang thought that he was showing mercy by not ordering the soldiers to surround and kill Tung Shan. Tung Shan sneered and said, I think your brain is damaged because you are the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower. Presumptuous. Behind Huangfu Yujiang, several higher-ups of the Sword Tower shouted angrily. Tung Shan glanced at the group of people in front of him and said with an indifferent smile, The Sword Tower is high and mighty on the Bright Moon Island. You are used to being overbearing. It's fine if you are overbearing to your people, but in front of me, you better behave yourself. You. Many elders were exasperated. Huangfu Yujiang stretched out his hand to stop him. He looked at Tung Shan with a sullen face, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Huangfu Yujiang, I didn't come to your Bright Moon Island to cause trouble. Tung Shan said coldly. However, your Bright Moon Island soldiers robbed my ship. When you first came here, even though you knew that the soldiers were in the wrong, you still wanted to capture me and bring me back to your Sword Tower for punishment. Domineering enough. It's a pity that you're too weak to capture me. Tung Shan knew very well that if he was weak, he would have been surrounded and killed by the soldiers at the seaside, or being killed by Huangfu Yujiang. Huangfu Yujiang's attacks at the seaside were all fatal. Looks like you're courting death, Huangfu Yujiang said in a low voice. Beside him, his master, Tian Hong, was also standing at the side with a black godly sword in his hand. Tung Shan suddenly let out a low snort. The angry snort shook the entire hall. The experts of the Sword Tower who had not reached the innate realm couldn't help but cover their ears with a pained expression. Stone powder fell from the entire hall. Huangfu Yujiang. Tung Shan extended his finger and pointed at Huangfu Yujiang. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Listen to me clearly, let alone you, even if all the people of the Sword Tower, including all the soldiers of the 18 generals' residences, come here. I can also slaughter them all. Many people in the Sword Tower trembled when they heard this. All the experts of the Sword Tower and all the soldiers of the 18 generals' residences? If you don't want to die, then scram further away, Tung Shan said coldly. Arrogant. Huangfu Yujiang snorted coldly. Whoosh, whoosh. Huangfu Yujiang, who was dressed in a white robe, and Tian Hong, who was dressed in a long gray robe, crossed a distance of more than 50 feet in an instant. Moving at an extremely fast speed, they created 2 gusts of violent wind out of thin air and the violent wind lifted up a lot of stone powder and dust in the main hall. The people behind them watched with their eyes wide open. Tung Qingshan looked at this scene calmly. The two sword lights enlarged rapidly in his eyes. Suddenly, he moved. Who? The silver reincarnation spear drew a strange and mysterious path. There was a faint, earthy yellow light flowing around the path. The scarlet-red tassel also transformed into a misty red light. Clang! Clang! The two divine swords were blocked at the same time. Tian Hong turned pale with fright. Even Huangfu Yujiang's grave and stern face revealed a trace of shock. He can actually block my teacher's attacks easily. His defensive spear art is actually stronger than my sword art. Although they had fought before, Huangfu Yujiang only knew that he couldn't break through Tung Qingshan's defensive spear art. However, he didn't know how powerful Tung Qingshan's defensive spear art was. You overestimate yourself. The cold shout reverberated in the hall. Two rapidly rotating spear shadows, one in front and one behind, stabbed towards Huangfu Yujiang and Tian Hong at almost the same time. Huangfu Yujiang let out an angry roar as if he wanted to block the spear shadows with all his might. However, it was useless. Puchi, Puchi. The sound of two spears piercing through flesh could be clearly heard. Xing E5 elemental spear art. Toxic dragon drill. Suppressed cries of pain resounded. Huangfu Yujiang and his teacher, Tian Hong, both retreated a few steps. Their faces were filled with fear as they looked at Tung Qingshan in disbelief. Huangfu Yujiang, who was wearing a white robe, was currently covered with bloodstains. Especially on his right shoulder, there was a hideous bloody hole that pierced through his shoulder. His teacher, Tian Hong, also had a bloody hole on his right shoulder. How is this possible? He defeated the Tower Lord and the Old Tower Lord in one move? Impossible. The higher-ups of the Sword Tower who were watching this scene shook their heads in a neurotic manner. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths unconsciously muttered all sorts of words. They couldn't accept the scene in front of them. It was because they knew that if a super expert could easily defeat the Tower Lord and the Old Tower Lord in one move, then this person would be invincible on the Bright Moon Island. He could even completely destroy the Sword Tower and establish a force that unified the Bright Moon Island. The higher-ups of the Sword Tower were terrified and angry. However, the Old Tower Lord, Tian Hong, remained silent. Huangfu Yujiang, who was beside him, had a bigger reaction. How can this be? It has only been one day. Yesterday, Huangfu Yujiang couldn't accept it. Yesterday, he was still able to resist Tung Qingshan's spear arts. However, today, Tung Qingshan's spear arts, whether it was in terms of power or speed, were much stronger than before. Huangfu Yujiang. A cold voice resounded. Huangfu Yujiang hastily raised his head to look. Not only him, but all the higher-ups of the Sword Tower who had gathered in the Great Hall were also staring at the person who spoke. The person who was like a devil. They all noticed that the tip of the silver spear was black and shiny. The blood that flowed along the tip of the spear was completely absorbed by the red tassel. If you're not satisfied, you can ask all the people of the Sword Tower to come here. You can even send an army. Tung Qingshan looked at him. Not satisfied? He was not satisfied, but did he dare to say it? At this moment, Huangfu Yujiang understood that the spear arts that his opponent had just displayed could instantly kill everyone in the Great Hall. Previously, his opponent only pierced through his shoulder and didn't kill him. This was already giving him face. What are you doing here? Huangfu Yujiang asked in a deep voice. The cave where the celestial jade annulus is. I will meditate here. Tung Qingshan smiled and said, I will not allow anyone to disturb me here. Sure. I hope you won't destroy the celestial jade annulus. Huangfu Yujiang said. Tung Qingshan smiled and nodded. Of course not. All of you can leave now. You can meditate here. I guarantee that no one will disturb Bright Moon Island. I only hope that you will keep your promise and not destroy the celestial jade annulus. Huangfu Yujiang bowed slightly, then turned around and left. Let's go. Without saying anything else, Huangfu Yujiang immediately led everyone away. On a mountain road outside the cave, a large group of people had gathered. "Tower Lord, what should we do now?" The higher-ups of the sword tower were confused. "What can we do?" Huangfu Yujiang frowned. "From today onwards, we will abide by what we said before. No one is allowed to disturb Tung Qingshan. From today onwards, I will live next to the forbidden area." Huangfu Yujiang turned to look at the forbidden area and thought to himself, "I only hope that Tung Qingshan will leave Bright Moon Island as soon as possible. If he didn't leave Bright Moon Island, Tung Qingshan would have the highest status on Bright Moon Island, not them. They would have to live in fear every day." Inside the cave, Tung Qingshan held the reincarnation spear and stepped into the natural cave. "Big Brother Tung, will those people come again?" Li Jun asked worriedly. "Don't worry." Tung Qingshan smiled and said, "People like Huangfu Yujiang are used to being high and mighty, like emperors. That's why he was so overbearing to us and killed whoever he wanted. However, when he realized that I was far stronger than him and couldn't resist, he became very obedient. I didn't even want to kill him, so he didn't dare to provoke me. As an assassin in his previous life, he had been trained in hell since he was 7 years old. In this life, he lived in a chaotic world. Tung Qingshan didn't have a Buddha's heart. In his eyes, there were people he had to kill, like his enemies. There were also people who deserved to be killed. If someone else wanted to kill him, Tung Qingshan wouldn't show any mercy. For example, Northtown's army of 100,000. There were also people he didn't have to kill, like the people of Sword Tower. When Tung Qingshan first entered the forbidden area, he wanted to prevent the news from leaking out. In addition, the 4 guardian elders were ruthless and had obviously killed many people. So, Tung Qingshan killed them all. Later, he found a celestial jade annulus. He knew that he had to stay here for a while. Thus, Tung Qingshan openly dealt with the expert of the Sword Tower. However, he didn't kill them to avoid causing unnecessary trouble. Once he finished his closed-door cultivation, he could leave. In just 1 day of meditation, I comprehended the second move of my water element fist. It also increased the power of the toxic dragon drill, and I can easily finish off my opponents. Tung Qingshan looked at the celestial jade annulus. His defense was strong, but his offense was weak. When the water element fist was slightly improved, the power of the toxic dragon drill immediately increased. From today onwards, I will focus on my closed-door cultivation. Tung Qingshan started his long-term closed-door cultivation in this natural cave. Every day, there were 24 hours. Among them, Tung Qingshan used 12 hours to comprehend the concept of the Sword Tao. At this time, Li Jun would guard him. As for the other 12 hours, Tung Qingshan would meditate and integrate the water element concept of the Sword Tao into the water element fist. Time passed. The experts of Sword Tower were looking forward to it, hoping that this demon god would leave as soon as possible. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Tung Qingshan was completely immersed in cultivation. He didn't even have time to talk to Li Jun every day. They would only have a meal once every 10 days to half a month. Only then would they chat. However, Li Jun always guarded him silently without any complaints. After a long period of closed-door cultivation, Tung Qingshan's understanding of the water element fist increased at an astonishing speed. After the update, Tomato said something. Many people said that the 9 Cauldrons was not well written. Tomato also felt the pressure. However, Tomato felt that he was very serious about the latest update, and it was not bad. Tomato needed everyone's encouragement and suggestions. With encouragement, Tomato would be very powerful. As for trash talk, everyone should talk less. Reading it would really make people feel discouraged. Also, everyone said something about Tung Qingshan's character. Don't think that Tung Qingshan was a good person. Tomato never said that he was a kind and good person. In his previous life, he grew up in killing at the age of 7. In this life, he lived in a chaotic world. Killing. To Tung Qingshan, it was as easy as drinking water. He had his own balance in his heart. He knew who he should kill and who he shouldn't. He hoped that people wouldn't treat Tung Shan as a true, kind, and beautiful model. Also, Tomato tried to increase his monthly votes. Right now, his monthly votes were really few. He was less than the first place by over 1,000 votes. The third place was about to catch up. Tomato hoped that those who liked Tung Shan, the 9 cauldrons, and those who liked Tomato could click recommend monthly votes to support author below to support Tomato. Thank you. Chapter 320. Ever since Tung Shan occupied the forbidden area of the Bright Moon Island Sword Tower to cultivate in seclusion, the forces of the Bright Moon Island became restless. The 18 generals' residences had many eyes and ears, so they easily found out the truth. This gave them a huge shock. The Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, Huang Fujiang, and the previous Tower Lord, Tian Hong, were defeated in one move by the mysterious expert, Tung Shan. They immediately understood. If Tung Shan was ambitious, then the entire Bright Moon Island would be in chaos, which had not been seen for thousands of years. Everyone was preparing carefully. To many ambitious people, being the emperor of an island with a population of tens of millions was very attractive. With Tung Shan's peerless martial arts, it was easy for him to win over some people. It was not difficult to be an emperor. However, Tung Shan had been staying in the Forbidden Cave and did not leave. There were no other movements. This made everyone on the island very anxious. Sword Tower, at the foot of the Forbidden Mountain. The heavy snow last night covered the entire Bright Moon Island with a layer of silver. At the foot of the Forbidden Mountain, there were many bamboo houses. The bamboos around the houses were also covered with snow. Occasionally, green shoots would emerge from the snow. Many disciples of the Sword Tower lived here. If those ambitious people in power paid attention to Tung Shan, then these elite disciples of the Sword Tower who wanted to become experts would also pay attention to Tung Shan. Phew! A white-robed young man was practicing his sword art in the open space in front of the bamboo house. He only left shallow footprints on the snow, and every sword move caused the snow on the ground to scatter. Phew! The white-robed young man suddenly stopped and panted slightly. His face was slightly red. Junior Marshal Brother, there is something wrong with your swordsmanship recently. Beside the bamboo house, there was a lean young man who was also wearing a white robe. He sat cross-legged in the bamboo house and looked at them from afar. The young swordsman couldn't help but say, "Eldest senior brother, you said that even the Tower Master was defeated by that expert called Tung Shan. Doesn't this mean that weapons such as spears and spears are more powerful than swords?" Since they were young, the children of Bright Moon Island trained hard with their swords. He studied hard at home and competed with his peers in swordsmanship, growing step by step until he could enter the sword gauntlet. The idea that swordsmanship reigned supreme was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. As for spears, in their eyes, it was no different from harpoons. It was just an ordinary tool. Junior brother, what are you saying? Of course, the sword art is more powerful. The lean young man berated. Look, isn't that Tung Shan still going to look at our sword tower's celestial jade annulus in the forbidden area? But the Tower Master and the others. The swordsman was just about to say something. The lean young man shouted in a deep voice, "Junior brother, have you forgotten how powerful the third-generation patriarch is? If the third-generation patriarch was still here, how could this Tung Shan be a match for him? If you have the heart, then concentrate on your cultivation. One day, you will reach the level of the third-generation patriarch. Then, who would dare to look down on our Bright Moon Island?" The moment he thought of the legendary third-generation patriarch, the swordsman immediately became spirited and said respectfully, "Senior brother, I won't let my imagination run wild. Okay, hurry up and get ready. Today, you will deliver food to the Tower Master." The lean young man ordered. "Yes." The swordsman hastily replied. Ever since Tung Shan went into seclusion in the forbidden area, Huang Fujiang had been waiting outside. In the forbidden area, in the natural cave where the omnipotent expert poetic sword godly Tai Bai had comprehended the Tao, The jade annulus was still emitting a green light. Tung Ching Shan, with disheveled hair and a face full of beard stubble, was sitting cross-legged. His face had an indescribable luster, like a piece of precious jade. The reincarnation spear was placed on his knees. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. His eyes, which were like black jade, were very bright. The Tao of the sword contained in the 4 lines of the Azure Lotus Sword Song is indeed as vast as the ocean and unfathomable. Tung Qingshan's eyes were calm. Poetic sword, godly Tai Bai must have entered the Tao through the water element. He then gradually went deeper and fused with other Taos. Tung Qingshan had been cultivating until now and realized that Li Tai Bai's Tao of the sword was getting more and more difficult. In the beginning, it was the water element. Gradually, it was mixed with the Tao of the bright moon. Tung Qingshan was very clear that he had studied the Tao of the heavens from the perspective of the 5 elements. However, it was not necessarily the same for others. After all, the mountain, the water, the sun, and the bright moon all had different Taos. They were all part of the Tao of the heavens. As for Li Tai Bai's Tao of the sword, it was originally a pure water element Tao. Tung Qingshan could understand it and fuse it. However, later on, it began to fuse with the Tao of the bright moon. Tung Qingshan was barely able to separate the water element Tao from it and comprehend it. However, after that, it was chaos. The water element Tao and the Tao of the bright moon were fused perfectly. Tung Qingshan was unable to separate them. He knew nothing about the Tao of the bright moon. It was not as easy to learn as the 5 elements. I should not be greedy. This celestial jade annulus has already saved me years of hard work. Tung Qingshan stood up and saw Li Jun, who seemed to be frozen by the cold weather, leaning against the mountain wall of the passageway. She was also wrapped in a thick blanket. Her face was slightly pale from a cold. This scene caused Tung Qingshan to be inexplicably shocked. Little Jun, I've been in seclusion for a few months. During these months, when I went to experience the Tao of the sword, she did not dare to rest. She was afraid that the people of the sword tower would sneak and attack. She was also afraid that I would be immersed in the concept of the sword Tao and would not be able to extricate myself. She stared at me most of the time, every day. She only waited for me to stop feeling the Tao of the sword and fuse what I comprehended into the water element fist. Only then did she go to get something to eat and sleep. When Tung Qingshan was feeling the Tao of the sword, his perception of the outside world was at its lowest. It was indeed easy for him to be sneak attacked. During these months, I did not talk much with her. Tung Qingshan sighed. During these months, Li Jun had been silently guarding at the side. However, she did not feel tired at all. This caused Tung Qingshan to be slightly touched. Immediately, Tung Qingshan walked over quietly. He first held Li Jun's small hand. It was very cold. Soon after, Tung Qingshan placed her hands into the quilt and pulled the quilt, wrapping Li Jun more tightly. In her sleep, Li Jun's nose was sniffing. There was a sweet smile on her face. It was as if she was having a sweet dream. Tung Qingshan smiled as he stood up and walked toward the platform on the cliff. The platform was at the edge of the cliff and was covered with a layer of snow. Who? As soon as he walked onto the platform, the cold wind blew over after the snow, causing Tung Qingshan to become clear-headed. He stood halfway up the mountain and looked into the distance. The vast land was covered in snow. Li Jun's eyelids moved, and she opened her drowsy eyes. With a glance, she saw the tall figures standing on the platform on the cliff. Big brother Tung stopped cultivating so early today? Li Jun was slightly surprised. In the past, besides feeling the Tao of the sword, Tung Qingshan would fuse the water element fist. During his closed-door cultivation, he had almost no time to rest. At this moment, he was actually standing on the platform and looking at the scenery. It was very rare. Big brother Tung, are you hungry? I will get you something to eat immediately. Li Jun hastily stood up. When Li Jun's voice sounded, the whole Gale Eagle that stayed in the great hall came over. Little Jun, don't worry. Tung Qingshan turned around and walked over. Little Jun, how many days have we stayed here? Tung Qingshan asked. Li Jun looked at the scratches on the mountain wall and replied, yes. Including today, a total of 3 months and 23 days. 3 months and 23 days? Tung Qingshan smiled and shook his head. I didn't expect that the yearly sacrifice would pass while I was in closed-door cultivation. On the first day of the 7th month, Tung Qingshan left Heavenly Rock Island. He had been on the sea for over 3 months. Almost 4 months. Now, another 3 months had passed. The yearly sacrifice had long passed. Tung Qingshan had also grown 1 year older. Huang Fu Yujiang. Tung Qingshan shouted loudly. His voice passed through the passageway and resounded within a mountain. This abode of the forbidden area is yours. This shout caused Li Jun to be shocked. Big brother Tongwei? Li Jun stared at Tung Qingshan. Let's go. It's time to leave Bright Moon Island. Tung Qingshan smiled and said, this celestial jade annulus is useless to me. Let's go. Yes. Li Jun nodded excitedly. During the past 4 months, Tung Qingshan didn't have time to talk to her. Although Li Jun had no regrets, she was very happy that the days of closed-door cultivation had ended. Screech, screech, Li Jun screeched repeatedly. The whole Gale Eagle, who had been staying on Bright Moon Island for the past 4 months, was bored. When it heard Li Jun screech, it couldn't help but become excited and screeched loudly. Screech, screech. The screech resounded throughout the high mountains. Tung Qingshan turned his head and smiled when he saw Li Jun and the whole Gale Eagle screeching happily. Outside the abode of the forbidden area, Huang Fu Yujiang and the experts of the Sword Tower, who were guarding outside the abode, heard the voice echoing in the abode of the forbidden area. Huang Fu Yujiang, this abode of the forbidden area is yours. They couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. Then, Huang Fu Yujiang took the lead and dashed into the abode of the forbidden area. The dozen or so experts also came to their senses and hurriedly followed. In the natural cave, when Huang Fu Yujiang and the others dashed into the cave, the first thing they saw was the celestial jade annulus. Fortunately, the celestial jade annulus is undamaged. Huang Fu Yujiang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the intact celestial jade annulus. If the celestial jade annulus was really destroyed by Tung Qingshan, Huang Fu Yujiang would really want to cry, but no tears would come out. No matter how much he hated Tung Qingshan, his shoulder was pierced and his strength was damaged. Therefore, Huang Fu Yujiang didn't have the ability to take revenge on Tung Qingshan. This Tung Qingshan is trustworthy. The other experts of the Sword Tower felt relieved. Look outside quickly. As one of them rushed to the platform on the cliff, the others also rushed over. The group of experts of the Sword Tower raised their heads and looked at the distant sky. In the boundless sky, there was a huge eagle spreading its wings. A green-robed man and a white-robed girl were riding on the eagle's back. They rode the eagle and soared into the 9 heavens. Screech. The whole Gale Eagle's loud and cheerful screech reverberated between the heavens and the earth. Huang Fu Yujiang heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the screech. This demon is finally gone. Chapter 3:21. The waves of a 9-rhythm, treacherous current surged violently. Tung Qingshan pulled a thick iron chain and forcefully pulled the tungsten wood vessel forward. The swiftly moving tungsten wood vessel collided with the turbulent waves, splashing snow-white waves. The 9-rhythm, treacherous current surrounded the entire Bright Moon Island and was several hundred li deep. Tung Qingshan slanted towards the southeast and forcefully dragged the tungsten wood vessel for 1,000 li before finally swimming out of the 9-rhythm, treacherous current. He had been dragging the tungsten wood vessel since the afternoon and only left the 9-rhythm, treacherous current late at night. Whoosh! Carrying a large iron chain, Tung Qingshan leaped back into the tungsten wood vessel. Big brother Tung, I'll get you something to eat. Seeing this, Li Jun hastily ran into the cabin. I was too careless this time. Tung Qingshan's muscles were slightly numb as he thought to himself. Dragging a large vessel and traveling against the current for 1,000 li in the turbulent 9-rhythm treacherous current for 12 hours is really tiring. It's even more tiring than fighting against North City's army of 100,000. Even though Tung Shan was an expert of the internal martial arts, he was still very tired. It would be very difficult for an innate expert to swim out of the 9-rhythm treacherous current empty-handed, let alone dragging a large vessel. Moreover, it was an entire 1,000 li. According to the speed of my previous life, I was traveling 100 li per hour against the current in this treacherous current. Tung Shan also felt carefree. At this moment, Li Jun walked out of the cabin. "Big brother Tung, you must be tired. Eat some pastries and drink some tea. The pastries are still hot." Li Jun held a plate and a cup of hot water. Seeing this, Tung Shan ate the pastries in a few bites. Li Jun smiled as she watched Tung Shan eat. "Eat slowly. There are still a lot of pastries in the cabin." Tung Shan asked in surprise, "How many pastries are there in the cabin?" "When you were in closed-door training, I went to the town a few times and found a lot of meat buns and steamed buns. I also bought a lot. There are a lot of them in the cabin." Li Jun smiled and said, "They're all dried and can be stored for a long time. I also bought a few big water tanks. They're all filled with water." Drifting on the sea, Tung Shan was fine even if he didn't drink water. He could absorb water through his pores. However, Li Jun was only at the peak of the post-liminary realm, so she still needed to drink water. "You bought water?" "Actually, if we don't have enough water, I have a way," Tung Shan said. "What method?" Li Jun was startled. "It's very simple. Connect 2 water tanks with an iron pipe. One of them was empty and the other was filled with seawater. I will use my innate true origin to heat up the water tank filled with seawater, turning the seawater into vapor. The vapor will flow into the empty water tank and condense into water that can be drunk," Tung Shan said casually. Tung Shan's innate true origin could even incinerate a person. He only needed to use a little bit of it to do so. "Huh?" Li Jun was a little confused. "Isn't it seawater? Why can you drink it?" Tung Shan was stunned. "All right, stop asking. It's already late at night. You should rest early." Tung Shan didn't say anything more. The difference between seawater and fresh water, heating and vaporizing, were very simple, but Tung Shan didn't want to explain too much. It was already spring, and the monsoon was already reversed. Although Tung Shan controlled the direction of the 2 sails and used the wind as much as possible. However, it was obvious that the tungstenwood vessel's daily speed was much slower than when it first set sail. Voila! The seawater rippled and was very tranquil. In the distant eastern horizon, the bright red sun had already revealed half of its head. The morning sunlight shone on the surface of the sea. The tungstenwood vessel slowly floated. Li Jun walked out of the cabin door. At this moment, Tung Shan was already practicing water element fist on the deck. With each punch, Tung Shan would attract some of the surrounding water vapor and condense it into some water droplets that revolved around Tung Shan. Streaks of blue lightning constantly flashed on the surface of Tung Shan's body. Phew, phew. Tung Shan would occasionally switch his fist art to the earth element fist. The blue lightning on the surface of his body would return to his body, and at the same time, the earthy yellow lightning would appear. As the water element fist and the earth element fist were exchanged, Tung Shan was like a god. Blue lightning and earthy yellow lightning constantly flashed on the surface of his body. Big Brother Tang's fist art is getting more and more powerful. Li Jun's face revealed a hint of joy. During the battle at the Great Yin Mountain, Big Brother Tung fled in a sorry state. When Big Brother Tung goes to the northern sea continent and sees Emperor use 36 splitting mountain forms, his strength will improve again. He will probably be able to step into the emptiness realm when Big Brother Tung returns. Li Jun knew very well that Tung Shan was chased by the entire world. "I will prepare some food for Big Brother Tung." Li Jun immediately went to prepare breakfast. "Big Brother Tung, rest for a while." When Li Jun finished preparing everything, she realized that Tung Chingshan's figure was flashing on the deck in a strange manner. Every time he flashed, he would only move a few chi away. However, these flashes were very strange. It was as if he was teleporting. Phew. Tung Chingshan stopped and walked over with a smile. He grabbed a meat bun on the low table and finished it in one bite. Screech, screech. The whole Gale Eagle also held 2 steamed buns in its mouth and ate excitedly. Li Jun smiled and stroked the whole Gale Eagle's feathers. Big brother Tung, what Qing Gong did you practice just now? I have never seen you practice it before. Li Jun said in surprise. Oh, Tung Chingshan smiled and said, yesterday, I dragged the tungsten wood vessel and swam for over 1,000 li. While I was in the sea, I saw some fish and had an idea. I was going to create a body art for dodging, turning, and moving. Actually, when I fought with the divine bird Blue Luan, I was already envious of the Blue Luan's speed. Now that I have completed the water element fist, I realize that it is completely possible to integrate the Tao of water into my body art. When Li Jun heard this, she was overjoyed and asked, Big brother Tung, you have created it? There's no sign of it yet. Tung Chingshan shook his head and said, I am still trying to figure it out. Moreover, the internal supreme force is different from the true origin of the Taoist and Buddhist sects. I need to slowly figure out how the internal supreme force can assist the body, how to stimulate the meridians and acupoints, and how to increase speed. With no one to teach Tung Chingshan had to do it himself. In Tung Chingshan's plan, the Tao of Earth should be able to create a Qing Gong body art. The Tao of Water should also be able to create a close combat body art. One was to fly in a straight line, similar to the Crossing Worlds. The other was to dodge in close combat, similar to the divine bird Blue Luan's body art. Big brother Tung, what are you going to name this body art? Li Jun was slightly excited. In the future, this body art will definitely be very famous. Name? Let's call it the Swimming Pisces body art. Tung Chingshan said casually. Swimming Pisces? This. Li Jun was startled. This name is too. Whether the name is good or bad, my body art is still the same body art. Tung Chingshan didn't mind. Let's call it the Swimming Pisces body art. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The tungsten wood vessel continued to advance towards the north, while Tung Chingshan concentrated on cultivating. He completely integrated the Tao of water contained in the water element fist into the toxic dragon drill and the Swimming Pisces body art. Although Tung Chingshan was pondering about the Qing Gong body art he should create for the earth element fist, he couldn't do anything about it. Firstly, the tungsten wood vessel's range was small. Secondly, on the sea, the water elemental power of the heavens and earth was the densest, making it suitable for researching the Tao of water. Fortunately, Tung Chingshan gained a lot from the Bright Moon Island. In one breath, Tung Chingshan created the 5th move of the water element fist. Compared to the 6 moves of the earth element fist, it was only slightly inferior. Tung Chingshan also realized that his previous toxic dragon drill was wrong. As the saying goes, too much hardness makes it easy to break. His finishing move, the toxic dragon drill, pursued too much strength and power. But now, the toxic dragon drill that Tung Chingshan performed was very ordinary, but it could explode with terrifying power in an instant. It could also perfectly retract the spear art immediately afterwards. It could be said that it was a combination of strength and gentleness. The power had increased by a large margin. The speed was even faster. Moreover, the control was perfect. On a deserted island, voila, an iron anchor was dropped from the tungsten wood vessel, and the vessel quickly stopped. Little June, it's been a long time since we got off the vessel. Let's go and rest on this deserted island. Tung Chingshan and Li Jun jumped off the tungsten wood vessel one after the other and arrived on the deserted island. Screech. The whole Gale Eagle also flew down from the vessel excitedly. As Tung Chingshan drifted on the sea, he would often come across some small islands and would usually stop to rest for half a day. After all, it was different on land and on the ship. As they stood by the sea, Tung Shan and Li Jun were in a good mood. Big brother Tung, how long until we reach the northern sea continent? Li Jun asked. It has only been a month since we left the Bright Moon Island. According to my estimations, it will take at least 2 to 3 months to reach the northern sea continent. Tung Shan said. Yes, little June, you and little Gray should take a stroll around. Just now on the vessel, I accompanied you to eat, drink, and chat. I haven't practiced my fist art properly. With this, Tung Shan stuck the reincarnation spear into the ground and started practicing the water element fist. As he practiced his fist art on a deserted island in the middle of the boundless ocean, Tung Shan's state of mind easily harmonized with the boundless ocean. Tung Shan felt that, although he had only left the Bright Moon Island for a month, his water element fist had improved a little. He reckoned that it wouldn't be long before he could create the 6th move. Phew, the fist art was faintly discernible. Tung Shan's feet naturally performed the swimming Pisces body art. He was as nimble as a fish, and with a flash, he moved 1 jong away. Moreover, the direction he moved in was extremely strange, completely defying common sense. He's really hardworking. Li Jun blinked and suddenly froze. In the distant horizon, fiery red shadows flew across the sky. At least 10 shadows flew into the depths of the deserted island one after another. This is... Li Jun froze. That was an ardent flame bird, right? Tung Shan also stopped and looked at the fiery red shadows in the distance in astonishment. 18 ardent flame birds. In the land of the 9 prefectures, ardent flame birds only exist in the western region. I didn't expect that there would be so many ardent flame birds on this deserted island. Ardent flame bird. The feathers on its entire body are red, and the feathers are as hard as dark steel. It is impervious to swords and spears, and it can spit fire. It is comparable to a hollow Dan innate expert. Big brother Tung, I just saw these ardent flame birds dive into the depths of the deserted island. Could it be that this deserted island is their nest? Li Jun said in astonishment. Maybe. Tung Shan smiled and said, however, we don't have to care about this. Let's rest for a while, then board the ship and continue our journey. Now, Tung Shan didn't even care about Golden Dan innate demonic beasts. Since the earth element fist and the water element fist had reached such a state, it could be said that Tung Shan had 1 foot in the door of the emptiness realm. Suddenly, screech, a loud and clear bird cry sounded. A fiery red shadow flew over from afar and stopped in the sky above Tung Shan and the others. The dreamlike beauty shocked Tung Shan, and Li Jun blew on. Chapter 322. The 7-colored feathers on its unfolded tail dazzled the eyes under the sunlight. The feathers on its head were golden, like a natural golden crown. Its entire body was enveloped in a thin layer of spiraling flames, like a divine bird bathing in flames. So beautiful, Tung Shan praised in his heart. Although this was the 2nd time he saw the divine bird, Blue Wan, he was still shocked by its beauty. Big brother Tung, is this the Blue Wan we saw before? Li Jun also felt that it was inconceivable. It should be. Tung Shan nodded and said, the divine bird Blue Wan is very rare. There are probably only 1 or 2 in this world. How could we coincidentally see 2 of them, and even have the same body shape? The Blue Wan's wings fluttered slightly as it floated high in the sky. Its beautiful eyes looked down at Tung Shan and Li Jun, and then it let out a loud cry. Li Jun revealed a surprised expression when she heard this. Screech, screech. Li Jun raised her head and let out a bird cry. Screech, screech, the Blue Wan also responded. Tung Shan smiled as he watched this scene. After a while, Li Jun turned her head to look at Tung Shan and said excitedly, Big brother Tung, this Blue Wan is the one we met before. It just said that it was very happy to meet us again. It also said that we are fated to meet and that we are its friends. How did it know we were here? Tung Shan asked. Is it related to the group of ardent flame birds? I asked it just now. This Blue Wan said that this island is its home. There are many ardent flame birds living here, and they all listen to it. It was the ardent flame birds that reported to it that they saw a man and a woman on the edge of the island, as well as an eagle-type demonic beast. The blue wand guessed that it was us. Li Jun raised her head and looked at the blue wand. So, it immediately rushed over. The ardent flame birds listened to the blue wand's orders. Tung Qingshan was not surprised. The blue wand could be said to be the king of the bird-type demonic beasts. What a coincidence! We came to its home. Tung Qingshan smiled. Screech, screech, the blue wand called out a few times. When Li Jun heard this, the smile on her face became even more radiant. Big brother Tung, this blue wand even wants us to go to its home. Who? The green wand in the sky suddenly flapped its wings and directly swooped down from midair. After that, it gently landed on the ground. The flames on the surface of its body were all withdrawn back into its body, and its 7-colored tail feathers were gathered together, as if it was a fairy's rainbow-colored feather clothes. The blue wand's body wasn't too big. Its height was similar to the whole Gale Eagle, but it was a bit thinner and weaker than the whole Gale Eagle. If the whole Gale Eagle was a fierce warrior, then the blue wand was a noble princess, very elegant. Screech, screech, the blue wand called out excitedly towards Tung Qingshan. Her eyes, which were faintly suffused with a trace of colorful light, also stared at Tung Qingshan. Li Jun was stunned. What did it say? Tung Qingshan asked curiously. It said that it wants to compete with you again. Li Jun smiled bitterly. Tung Qingshan laughed involuntarily. Compete with me again? Last time, Tung Qingshan wasn't able to win against the blue wand. However, after going through closed-door training on Bright Moon Island, Tung Qingshan's current strength had increased by a large margin, especially his offensive toxic dragon drill. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that its power had doubled. Tung Qingshan smiled and said, Ask it, why does it want to compete? Li Jun immediately conversed with the blue wand. It said that on this island, the most powerful ardent flame bird is also not its opponent. It simply has no opponent. It simply has no opponent. The last time we competed, it was very happy, and it wants to compete with you again. Li Jun said helplessly to Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan couldn't help but laugh. Little Jun, it seems that this blue wand divine bird is also a lonely expert. It's hard to find an opponent. All right, tell it. If it's not afraid of getting injured, then fight with me. Tung Qingshan didn't act pretentiously. Okay. Li Jun immediately conversed with the blue wand. However, the blue wand suddenly flapped its wings, and a gust of wind blew against Tung Qingshan. The blue wand's head was held high, and it was full of fighting spirit. Needless to say, Tung Qingshan knew the blue wand's decision. Ha, good. My spear art has improved greatly. I'll use you to test it out. Tung Qingshan laughed as he grabbed the reincarnation spear that was stabbed into the ground and said, Little Jun, go to the side and hide further away. Hearing this, Li Jun obediently ran to the side of the forest in the distance. The whole Gale Eagle descended from the sky and stopped beside Li Jun. The blue wand could be said to be the most powerful demonic beast below the emptiness realm. Tung Qingshan, whose toxic dragon drill had improved greatly, could be said to be the most powerful human below the emptiness realm. He had already touched the doorstep of the emptiness realm. Li Jun and the whole Gale Eagle didn't dare to approach the fierce battle between the man and the demonic beast. Screech, the blue wand let out a high-pitched screech, and its entire body was enveloped in flames. The plants on the ground were instantly roasted into ashes, leaving only blackened sand. The blue wand, enveloped in flames, simply flashed and disappeared into the distance. It then appeared on the left side of Tung Qingshan. There was only one word to describe it: fast. Huh? Tung Qingshan laughed. The reincarnation spear was like his arm. The tip of the spear drew a beautiful and profound arc, and the red tassel left behind a red afterimage. Rise! Tung Qingshan shouted deeply. The instant the reincarnation spear blocked the blue wand's sharp claws, an astonishing power erupted. The blue wand was hit by this force and flew up into the sky. Rumble, the violent airflow caused the ground to sink by 3 chi. The surrounding sand and stones were sent flying, and the seawater at the side surged. Blue wand, you're no match for me. Tung Qingshan looked up at the sky. The blue wand looked down, and flames seemed to be burning in its eyes. It let out a high-pitched screech, and like a sharp arrow, it shot down from the sky. You already know my defensive spear art last time. I'll let you experience my offensive spear art. Tung Qingshan's eyes were like lightning, and he suddenly let out a low grunt. The instant the blue wand swooped down, Tung Qingshan's body suddenly flashed, and like a slippery fish, he dodged 1 zhang away. The blue wand moved horizontally almost at the same time, and it was even more ingenious than Tung Qingshan's body. Break! Tung Qingshan shouted fiercely, and his entire body flashed with green light and earthy yellow lightning. Tung Qingshan's arms bulged to the point that his clothes were pushed up. The reincarnation spear instantly erupted with drilling power. The air was like water being drilled into the ground, and a terrifying roar that seemed to pierce through the entire space resounded. Buzz! Along with this terrifying roar, Tung Qingshan's reincarnation spear transformed into a blurry silver lightning, extremely fast. Screech! The blue wand immediately screeched, and the flames on its entire body surged, transforming into a mirage. Its dodging speed was even faster than before. Pooh! A few drops of golden blood drifted down. Phew! Tung Qingshan withdrew his long spear with lightning speed. Holding the long spear in his right hand, he looked at the blue wand that had already landed on the ground. It's actually golden blood. Tung Qingshan exclaimed inwardly. The power of the toxic dragon drill was just as Tung Qingshan expected. The last time he competed with the blue wand, he had only created the first move of the water element fist. But now, he had already created the 5th move of the water element fist. This toxic dragon drill, regardless of speed or attack power, had all increased by a large margin. This time, the blue wand's dodging speed also exploded to the extreme, and its dodging speed made Tung Qingshan extremely envious. However, it still couldn't dodge this spear. Fortunately, Tung Qingshan immediately withdrew his spear the moment it pierced through. He also didn't use the internal supreme force to blast the wound. Perhaps the feathers and scales of a demonic beast body were very hard, but the inside wouldn't be that hard. Once the spear pierced through the inside and the internal supreme force exploded, a large bloody hole would definitely appear. However, this time, he was competing with the blue wand. Moreover, Tung Qingshan had a good impression of the blue wand. Naturally, he wouldn't be ruthless. According to the legends, the blue wand can recover very quickly from injuries. It can be said to have an immortal body. Tung Qingshan carefully examined the blue wand's wound. There was a wound that was 2 fingers wide on the blue wand's left wing. Blood stopped flowing out, and, at the same time, the wound was rapidly shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the time it took to take a breath, the original wound had disappeared. Screech! Screech! The blue wand continuously emitted screeches towards Tung Qingshan. It seemed to be very excited. At this moment, Li Jun, who was watching the fight from afar, hastily ran over. Big Brother Tung, the blue wand said that your spear art is very powerful. It was also very surprised and asked you. It wasn't this powerful last time, but it suddenly became so powerful. Li Jun said, it even asked you if you have reached the level of a divine beast. Oh, it should be the emptiness realm that we were talking about. Of course I haven't reached it. Tung Qingshan shook his head. Upon reaching the emptiness realm, one would be able to control the power of the heavens and the earth, allowing the energy within the body to flow endlessly. For example, Borilimu, Huangfu Yujiang, and his teacher, Zhuge Yuanhong, had all touched the Tao. In the past, the power of Zhuge Yuanhong's sword was unimaginable. Borilimu's descent of the Thunder God had almost caused Tung Qingshan to lose. This was the first time Huangfu Yujiang fought with Tung Qingshan, but he was able to defend against every move of Tung Qingshan. However, it was obviously not that easy to reach the emptiness realm. If it was that easy, the emptiness realm wouldn't be so precious. Screech, screech, Li Jun and the blue wand were conversing. Big brother Tung. Li Jun turned her head and looked towards Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan realized that Li Jun's expression had become somewhat strange. Tung Qingshan looked at Li Jun confusedly. What's wrong? Li Jun's expression was extremely strange as she replied, The blue wand told me that it wants to go with us. What? Tung Qingshan was shocked. The blue wand wants to go with us? Little Jun, what did you say to it just now? It asked how you became so powerful and improved so much. I told it that big brother Tung comprehended it by yourself. Li Jun didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she said. Then the blue wand said, when it saw big brother Tung practicing fist art, it was somewhat moved. It wants to watch big brother Tung practice fist art in the future. It also said that it wants to become a godly beast. Therefore, it wants to go with you. Tung Qingshan suddenly understood. Last time, the blue wand wanted to fight him because it saw his water element fist. Indeed, Tung Qingshan's internal martial art was different from other martial arts. Other people comprehended it. For example, the poetic sword god, Li Taibai, contained the Tao in his calligraphy. Tung Qingshan, on the other hand, contained the Tao he comprehended in his fist art. It wasn't strange for the blue wand to be moved when it saw his fist art. It seems that the blue wand, who reached the golden Dan innate realm a long time ago, also wants to reach the emptiness realm. Tung Qingshan smiled. The blue wand probably thought that since Tung Qingshan improved quickly, it might have a chance to become an emptiness realm demonic beast. Then do we agree? Li Jun asked. This is a great thing. Of course we agree. Tung Qingshan smiled. Li Jun immediately said to the blue wand. The blue wand seemed very excited, but immediately after, the blue wand called out again, Screech, screech, big brother Tung. Li Jun's expression became strange again. What? Tung Qingshan was puzzled by Li Jun's expression. Li Jun said strangely, the blue wand said that it wants to go with us. There's another problem, which is that this matter requires the permission of its mother. Its mother? Tung Qingshan stared. It has a mother. 3 chapters were updated. If Tomato remembered correctly, he still owed everyone a chapter. Tomato didn't forget. Yesterday, Tomato said something at the end of the update. Immediately, many brothers left messages in the book review and comment section to support and encourage Tomato. Tomato's monthly votes also increased by a lot. Tomato felt warm in his heart. He was really grateful to everyone. Actually, the happiest thing about writing novels on the internet was having a group of brothers supporting him. Everyone's support also made Tomato very motivated. Chapter 323. In the distant past, a blue wand appeared in the land of the 9 prefectures. However, since then, there had been no trace of the blue wand in the land of the 9 prefectures for a long time. The divine bird blue wand was extremely rare. It has a mother. I've seen many demonic beasts, but I don't think I've seen a mother and son together. Tung Qingshan sighed with a smile. Li Jun pursed her lips and wrinkled her nose. A beautiful dimple appeared at the corner of her mouth as she said, Big brother Tung, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I can only say that you have seen too few demonic beasts. Tung Qingshan saw that Li Jun's expression was exactly like Kitten's from his previous life. Tung Qingshan immediately woke up. Little Jun, let it ask its mother. Yes. Li Jun's mind was very meticulous. She also noticed that there was something wrong with Tung Qingshan's gaze just now. This made her heart sweet. She blushed slightly and emitted a few chirps towards the blue wand beside her. The blue wand also responded. Big brother Tung. The blue wand asked if we should go and see its mother. Li Jun said, Oh. Tung Qingshan frowned and pondered. Once the blue wand reached adulthood, it would at least be at the innate golden core level. And what sort of strength did the mother of the Azure Phoenix possess? Even if it was an emptiness realm demonic beast, Tung Shan would not be too surprised. However, in front of an emptiness realm demonic beast, he would not be able to resist at all. Tung Shan didn't like people who didn't have the ability to resist. Let's go, Big Brother Tung. Don't you want to see what the mother of the divine bird blue one is like? Li Jun's sparkling eyes were filled with anticipation. She liked demonic beasts, so she naturally wanted to see the divine bird blue one's mother even more. Big Brother Tung, I think its mother will not be hostile towards us. If there is enmity with Mother Blue Phoenix's flying speed, we won't be able to escape even if we want to. I might as well go and take a look. When Ting Shan heard this, he couldn't help but nod. On the sea, the divine bird blue one's flying speed far surpassed that of the whole Gale Eagle. If the other party really made a move, there was indeed no way for them to escape. All right then, let's go take a look. What's this blue one's mother like? Tung Shan said with a laugh. Joy appeared on Li Jun's face as she hastily spoke to the blue one. The blue one immediately flapped its wings excitedly. Screech, screech. Li Jun instructed the nearby whole Gale Eagle. Big Brother Tung, I told Little Gray to stay here and look after the tungstenwood vessel. Let's leave with Blue One now, Li Jun said with a smile. Tung Shan held the reincarnation spear in his hand and nodded with a smile. At this moment, the divine bird Blue One let out a high-pitched cry and walked into the island. The divine bird Blue One was relatively thin, and its back was not wide. Even if it could carry people, it could only barely fit one person. If both Ting Shan and Li Jun went up, Tung Shan would probably have to carry Li Jun. The Blue One is leading the way. Li Jun walked happily with Tung Shan shoulder to shoulder. Under the guidance of the Blue One, they entered the deserted island. This was a deserted island, and it was very peaceful. As they advanced in the forest, they couldn't see any wild beasts. There wasn't even the slightest trace of wild beasts. Soon after, Tung Shan and the others walked along the undulating hills for a long time and arrived at a spacious valley. This valley was filled with thick, strong, and fiery red trees. The leaves of these trees were also fiery red. On top of these trees, there were often huge bird nests, and in some of these nests were ardent flamebirds. When Tung Shan, Li Jun, and the Blue One arrived, screech, screech, resounding and sharp cries sounded from the forest in the valley, and ardent flamebirds popped their heads out from the bird nests on the tree branches. Each and every one of them was filled with hostility. However, when they saw the Blue One leading the way for the two humans, these ardent flame birds no longer screeched loudly and became much more obedient. So many ardent flame birds. Big Brother Tung, what we saw earlier was only a part of it. Li Jun's eyes lit up in surprise. There are more than 100 ardent flame birds here. Tung Shan echoed, but his gaze was fixed on the thick, strong, and fiery red trees. Fire parasol tree. In the books, it was said that these ardent flame birds only build their nests on the fire parasol tree. It's true. The branches of the fire parasol tree are harder than steel, and they are resistant to fire. They are even more precious than tungsten wood. Tung Shan looked at the fire parasol tree. Li Jun looked at the ardent flame birds, but for a moment, she did not notice the Blue One. Relying on its two sharp claws, the Blue One continued to walk forward. Its long, seven-colored tail feathers drooped down as if a fairy was strolling. Screech! At this moment, the Blue One walked to the front of a pool of water and emitted a cry. Only then did Tung Shan and Li Jun wake up. The Blue One screeched a few times and then directly scuttled into the pool. Li Jun turned her head and looked at Tung Shan in surprise. Big Brother Tung, this Blue One said that its mother is in another valley. It is very difficult to climb, but it is very easy to pass through this pool. Let's follow it. Ha! Tung Shan laughed. In order for the Blue One to see its mother, it can fly directly into that valley. But to lead the way for us, we have to go through the pool. Let's go down. Tung Shan and Li Jun jumped into the pool almost at the same time. Li Jun had the water-dispelling pearl, so it was easy for her to swim in the pool. The water-dispelling green pearl caused the surrounding 5 zhang to be devoid of water. Li Jun placed the water-dispelling green pearl on her stomach, so that her whole body would not be drenched in water. Tung Shan pulled Li Jun's hand. Tung Shan's legs were still submerged in the water. Voila! Tung Shan slapped his legs, and the water surged. He pulled Li Jun and swam forward with the blue wand for a while. Soon after, they floated to the surface of the water. Screech! After the blue wand came out of the water, it emitted a light and quick cry. Big Brother Tung, the blue wand said that we have arrived. Tung Shan pulled Li Jun's hand and rushed out of the water with a pong sound, splashing a lot of water. They then landed on the shore of the lake. This is the residence of the blue wand's mother. Tung Shan looked around. This was a tranquil valley surrounded by cliffs. The sea was cold, but this valley was as warm as spring, and all kinds of flowers were blooming. Not far away, there were also thick fire parasol trees. In the middle of the fire parasol forest, there was a fire parasol tree that was at least 3 zhang wide. It could be called the fire parasol tree king. Strangely, such a thick fire parasol tree king was very short, only about 10 zhang tall. A huge ball of flame was on this tree king. This is Tung Shan's eyes widened. Could this be? Li Jun was also shocked. The blue wand spread its wings and flew in that direction. At the same time, it turned its head and emitted a cry. Big Brother Tung, the blue wand said that it's its mother and asked us to go over. Li Jun swallowed, her eyes filled with shock. Tung Shan and Li Jun both observed the huge ball of flame on top of the fire parasol tree king. It was an enormous godly bird with fiery red feathers and a body that was 4 to 5 zhang long. Its tail feathers were also folded together, but they were even longer than the blue wand's tail feathers. However, the enormous godly bird's tail feathers were still fiery red. Its entire body was covered in fiery red feathers, and even the crown of feathers that naturally grew in the top of its head were also fiery red. Its entire body was bathed in flames. Screech, screech, the blue wand emitted a low cry. The enormous godly bird's pair of dreamy eyes looked towards the 2 humans on the shore of the lake. With a hoo sound, it spread its wings and flew up. Its originally folded tail feathers were also completely unfolded. Its body was 4 to 5 zhang long, but when it spread its wings, it was nearly 10 zhang long. It was like a fiery red cloud descending from the sky, flying towards Tung Shan and Li Jun Phoenix, the legendary godly beast, Undying Phoenix. Tung Shan was completely stupefied. Undying Fire Phoenix, Fire Phoenix. Li Jun also stared blankly. It was a fiery red phoenix. If the blue wand was like a noble princess, then this fiery red phoenix was like a noble queen. In the blink of an eye, the undying fire phoenix flew in front of Tung Shan and Li Jun and landed. Undying Phoenix, Fire Phoenix? Tung Shan clearly remembered that in the records of demonic beasts in the books, the Undying Phoenix was one of the demonic beasts that was recorded in particular. Undying Phoenix, also known as Fire Phoenix, it possessed an undying body. Wherever the Undying Phoenix passed, it left behind scorched earth. The blood of the Undying Phoenix could even bring a person who was on the verge of death back to life. It was one of the most terrifying godly beasts. As for the legendary grass of immortality, it could only be found where the Undying Phoenix was. How could the blue wand's mother be the Undying Phoenix? Tung Shan's heart was filled with astonishment. And the grass of immortality. The grass of immortality was incomparably precious. It could directly increase a person's lifespan by 200 years. One should know that an expert at the pinnacle of the innate realm only had a lifespan of 200 years. If one's lifespan was increased by 200 years, the possibility of attaining the emptiness realm would be much higher. Even if one did not attain the emptiness realm, Just the increase in lifespan was enough to make countless experts in the land of the 9 prefectures go crazy. However, the grass of immortality was extremely difficult to obtain. The only thing recorded in the books was that the grass of immortality could be found where the undying phoenix was. However, the undying phoenix was an absolutely terrifying existence. I didn't expect that the blue wand's mother was actually the undying phoenix. The blue wand was already powerful enough. Once it transformed into the emptiness realm, it would be even more terrifying. Tingqingshan was extremely shocked. The huge body of the undying phoenix was like a small mountain in front of Tingqingshan and Li Jun. Its pair of eyes were also examining the 2 humans in front of it. Screech, screech, the blue wand continuously chirped beside the undying phoenix. In front of the undying phoenix, the size of the blue wand was like an infant in front of an adult. The undying phoenix glanced at the blue wand with a trace of affection in its eyes. It then carefully looked at Tingqingshan and also chirped a few times. Big brother Tong. Li Jun was shocked. What? Tingqingshan looked at Li Jun. Li Jun hastily said, just now, the blue wand and the undying phoenix said that they wanted to go with us and explore the world together. They also said that you are very powerful. They said that you were weaker than it last time, but now you are stronger than it. Therefore, they want to go with Big Brother Tong. Good breakthrough. Moreover, they also mentioned your fist art. And the undying phoenix wants you to demonstrate your fist art again. Li Jun said, demonstrate my fist art again? Tingqingshan was startled. Screech, screech. The blue wand at the side also chirped towards Li Jun. Li Jun hastily said, the blue wand also said that they want Big Brother Tong to demonstrate your fist art again. They want their mother to be at ease. In front of the undying phoenix, Tingqingshan felt suffocated. He felt as if he was facing an unparalleled, blazing mountain. Since the undying phoenix wants to see my fist art, that's fine. Tingqingshan waved his hand, and the reincarnation spear in his hand transformed into an afterimage, flying towards a mountain wall at the side and stabbing into the mountain rock. Chapter 3:24. The undying phoenix's eyes were also burning with flames as it stared at Tingqingshan. The blue wand at the side flapped its wings and let out 2 cries, seeming to be full of confidence in Tingqingshan. Buzz! As soon as Tingqingshan made his move, the earth shook. As Tingqingshan performed the earth element fist, streaks of earthy yellow lightning flickered all over his body, making him look like a deity. With every punch and kick, the earth trembled slightly. Within a radius of several hundred feet, the earth elemental power of heaven and earth was stirred. Li Jun just blinked and stared at him, completely clueless. Qing Wan could only feel that Tingqingshan's fist technique contained an unfathomable Tao. On the other hand, the undying phoenix could clearly sense the movement of the earth elemental power of heaven and earth. The undying phoenix's eyes were filled with surprise. The heavenly Tao was indescribable. It was impossible for the disciple to understand the Tao through verbal descriptions. He could only rely on comprehension, even if she was the undying phoenix, even though she had already comprehended the Tao. However, even if she understood, she couldn't teach her child. Most of the emptiness realm experts understood themselves, but he could not teach his disciples. Only an extremely small number of them had reached the insightful void level and were able to construct their own inner world. Only when one's understanding of the Tao was very thorough could they use some mediums to teach their disciples. Or, through calligraphy that contained the Tao, the disciples could also learn calligraphy. Through calligraphy, they could indirectly comprehend the Tao. Li Taibai's Green Lotus Sword song was like this. The undying phoenix could not help but let out a cry filled with joy. She really didn't expect that a human who had yet to reach the emptiness realm would be able to achieve such a feat. He was actually able to convey Tao through a few fist techniques. Unbelievable! Boom! After Tingqingshan performed the 6 moves of the earth element fist, he changed his fist force into the water element fist. The earth elemental lightning on the surface of his body converged into his body. Blue lightning flashed all over Tung Qingshan's body. The surface of the lake next to him shook, and a lot of water splashed towards Tung Qingshan's fists. Hua, hua. As he moved and waved his fists, a small water dragon swam around him. The undying phoenix, who was initially surprised, was now truly shocked, because these two sets of fist techniques were different paths. Back then, when it followed its master and comprehended the emptiness realm, it also started with the water elemental Tao. Then, it gradually deepened and became stronger. However, this young human before him had actually comprehended different Taos at the same time. Moreover, it could be expressed through fist techniques. How could it not be shocked? Phew. Tung Qingshan slowly exhaled. His breath was like an arrow. Withdraw. Tung Qingshan returned to his normal form. Soon after, he strode to the side of the mountain wall. With a chi sound, Tung Qingshan pulled out his reincarnation spear. Screech, screech, the blue wand called out to its mother, the undying phoenix. Li Jun smiled and said, "Big brother Tung." The blue wand asked its mother how your fist art is. Tung Qingshan smiled, but his heart was filled with confidence. Screech, the undying phoenix, also emitted a deep and low cry. The sound reverberated throughout the entire valley. Tung Qingshan looked at Li Jun. Li Jun smiled and said, "The undying phoenix has agreed and said that your fist art is really good." No matter how picky it was, after seeing Tung Qingshan's two sets of fist arts, the undying phoenix had nothing to say. The blue wand's wings trembled slightly and turned into a shadow. When its body reappeared, it was already at Tung Qingshan's side. Screech, screech, the blue wand happily called out in front of Tung Qingshan. "Big brother Tung, look over there." Li Jun suddenly lowered her voice and pointed to a place not far away. Tung Qingshan also looked over. There was a big black rock leaning against the mountain wall. This big black rock was faintly glowing with a dark red color. The surface of the rock was very smooth, but in the middle of the rock, a small grass grew strangely. The grass had 5 leaves, and a colorful halo was faintly circulating on the leaves. The grass of immortality. Tung Qingshan's heart trembled. Tung Qingshan and Li Jun glanced at each other. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. The grass of immortality. A treasure that could make the land of the 9 prefectures go crazy. The undying phoenix had lived for countless years, so it naturally noticed the direction Tung Qingshan and Li Jun were looking at. Unfortunately, it's not mature yet. Tung Qingshan sighed inwardly. The grass of immortality had 7 leaves that glowed with a colorful halo. If one consumed the grass of immortality, no matter how serious the injury, it could heal. Moreover, it could increase one's lifespan by 200 years. Screech, the undying phoenix, emitted a series of screeches towards Tung Qingshan. "Big brother Tung." Li Jun didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she said, "The undying phoenix said that the grass of immortality is not mature yet, so it's useless to look at it." Tung Qingshan could only smile helplessly. Li Jun looked at the undying phoenix in astonishment. The undying phoenix continued to scream. Li Jun revealed an expression of ecstasy and hastily said, "Big brother Tung." The undying phoenix said that it is very difficult for the grass of immortality to grow. In the past thousands of years, it has cultivated a total of 16 grass of immortality. 3 of them were given to its benefactor. Yes, Big Brother Tung, for what it said, it should be the poetic sword god Li Tai Bai. Benefactor? Tung Qingshan was secretly shocked. The undying phoenix had a friendship with Li Tai Bai. There are 3 more. When it was in the land of the 9 prefectures, it gave them to 3 humans, Li Jun said. Tung Qingshan was slightly surprised. The undying phoenix had been to the land of the 9 prefectures? Could it be that the description of the blue wand and the undying phoenix in the books is the one in front of us? Tung Qingshan guessed. Li Jun couldn't hide the astonishment on her face as she continued. The undying phoenix also said that a few decades ago, a human expert who understood the language of beasts flew over and asked for a grass of immortality from it. Understood the language of beasts? Tung Ching Shan was slightly confused. In this world, there were many who understood the language of beasts. The Heavenly God Palace definitely had it. As for the Snowhawk Hall that was able to tame the Snow Hawk, it had been passed down from generation to generation. There should be some who understood the language of beasts. There was also the shooting Sun God Mountain. If they could tame ink wolves as mounts, they must also have an expert in the beast language. However, he understood the language of beasts and had reached the emptiness realm. That would be too little. Unfortunately, Tung Ching Shan knew too little about the emptiness realm experts of the land of the 9 prefectures. Little June, ask it who that human is. Does it know? Tung Ching Shan asked. Li Jun was also very curious and immediately asked the undying phoenix. The undying phoenix looked at Tung Ching Shan and also replied. Big Brother Tung, the undying phoenix said that person is an expert of the Taoist sect. The undying phoenix also determined that that person should be one of the top figures in the land of the 9 prefectures. Li Jun guessed with a strange expression. Taoist? Could it be the palace lord of the Heavenly God Palace, or the Ying family, or Emperor Yu's Hall? The 8 supreme sects all had emptiness realm experts. However, the 8 supreme sects rarely fought against each other. Thus, the opportunities for the emptiness realm experts to fight were also rare. The people of the world didn't know much about them. Taoist sect? Then it wouldn't be the Mani Temple. Tung Ching Shan sighed. To be able to fly over and ask for a grass of immortality from the undying phoenix, this person must be very powerful. Moreover, this happened several decades ago. This emptiness realm expert is most likely still alive. Big Brother Tung. Li Jun smiled and hastily said, The undying phoenix said that the grass of immortality is very precious. It took a lot of effort to cultivate it. Now, there are only 9 left. It can't just give it to us. Tung Ching Shan also understood this. However, it also said, Li Jun smiled and said, if the blue wand goes with us, it can transform into the undying phoenix within 10 years. It will give us the remaining 9 grass of immortality. If the blue wand can transform into a phoenix within 100 years, it will give us 3 grass of immortality. If it exceeds 100 years, it will still give us 1 grass of immortality. However, it depends on whether we are still alive. When Tung Ching Shan heard this, he smiled helplessly. 10 years? This undying phoenix is really greedy. However, Tung Ching Shan could feel that the undying phoenix valued its only child. The blue wand can transform in 10 years and give the 9 grass of immortality to Tung Ching Shan. Obviously, in the undying phoenix's heart, the grass of immortality is far less precious than its child. I'm going to the northern sea continent now. The grass of immortality won't be of much use. When I return from the northern sea continent, maybe the blue wand will reach the emptiness realm. At that time, I will take the grass of immortality. Tung Ching Shan thought to himself. Then he smiled and said, Little June, tell the undying phoenix that I agree to this condition. I will try my best to cultivate the blue wand. Voila! The seawater rippled as the tungsten-wood vessel sailed forward. Now, there was one more divine bird, the blue wand, on the tungsten-wood vessel. On the deck, a low square table was placed on the deck. Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun sat facing each other. The whole Gale Eagle and the blue wand also sat facing each other. They ate the 3 basins of freshly roasted fish together. Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun ate 1 basin together. The whole Gale Eagle and the blue wand ate 1 basin each. Screech, screech. The blue wand let out excited cries as it continuously ate. This was the first time it ate roasted fish. It ate 1 fish at a time. When Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun had only eaten a small portion, the blue wand had already finished the entire basin of roasted fish. Ha, Little Blue eats really fast. Tung Ching Shan laughed. Yes, Little Gray has only eaten a small portion. Li Jun laughed. The blue wand stared at the whole Gale Eagle's basin. The whole Gale Eagle seemed to have intentionally slowed down and had only eaten a small portion. Seeing this, the whole Gale Eagle immediately used its sharp beak to push the basin in front of the blue wand. It cried out a few times as if it was saying, "You eat, you eat." The blue wand let out a proud cry and continued to eat. Big Brother Tongue, did you notice? Ever since Little Blue left with us, Little Gray has been very happy. Li Jun snickered and looked at the whole Gale Eagle. The whole Gale Eagle was looking at the blue wand with eyes full of brilliance. Big Brother Tongue, do you think that Little Gray likes Little Blue? The whole Gale Eagle likes the blue wand? Tung Ching Shan was stunned. When Tung Ching Shan heard this, he recalled the various signs of the whole Gale Eagle after the blue wand boarded the vessel. That's true. Tung Ching Shan laughed. The blue wand is probably the most beautiful of the birds. The whole Gale Eagle is a bachelor, so it's normal for him to like the blue wand. However, it's too weak. The blue wand can send it flying with one wing. Bringing the blue wand aboard the vessel was indeed very wise, because the blue wand had been to the northern sea continent before. 3 months later, in the evening, dark clouds covered the sky and the wind howled. Tung Ching Shan stood at the bow of the tungsten wood vessel and looked at the chaotic sea in front of him. There were many whirlpools in the sea, and the seawater was chaotic and turbulent. Big Brother Tongue, according to what Little Blue said, the sea in front of us is about 2,000 to 3,000 li. Once we pass this part of the sea, we will reach the coastal waters of the northern sea continent. Some of the islands in the coastal waters are inhabited by the people of the northern sea continent. Li Jun said excitedly. Tung Ching Shan, with a face full of stubble, looked ahead with excitement in his heart. It's been more than half a year. Tung Ching Shan's eyes burned. After we pass this part of the sea, we will reach the coastal waters of the northern sea continent. In 10 to 15 days, we will reach the northern sea continent. P.S. I only wrote 2 chapters today. My wrist is already much better. It seems that it will be completely healed tomorrow. Tomorrow, the tomato will make up for the deficiency. I'm about to reach the northern sea continent. The next part is the plot of the northern sea continent. Chapter 325. The divine bird blue wand and the whole Gale Eagle also stood at the bow of the ship and looked at the gloomy and chaotic sea ahead. The blue wand turned its head towards Li Jun and chirped a few times. Big Brother Tongue, Little Blue said that there is no way to cross the 2,000 to 3,000 li of the chaotic sea. Li Jun looked towards Tung Ching Shan. Tung Ching Shan looked at the chaotic sea and said with an unconcerned smile, "It's only 2,000 to 3,000 li. This chaotic sea is not much stronger than the Bright Moon Island's 9-rhythm treacherous currents. You guys rest. The tungstenwood vessel will cross this sea tomorrow morning." As Tung Ching Shan said this, he turned around and walked towards the mast, lowering the 2 sails. Li Jun widened her eyes and said, "Big Brother Tongue, you still want to go into the sea?" Little Jun, enter the cabin. Tung Ching Shan didn't say anything more. He took off his shoes and threw them into the cabin. He then strode towards the bow of the ship and grabbed the iron chain and carried it on his shoulder. He turned his head and grinned at Li Jun. "Have a good sleep. Come out when the tungstenwood vessel stops shaking." "Be careful," Li Jun hastily said. As soon as the words were spoken, Tung Ching Shan leaped up and dived into the chaotic and gloomy sea like a sharp arrow. Plop! Water splashed everywhere. The iron chain continued to go deeper into the sea. Soon, with a clang, the iron chain became taut. Voila! A vigorous and unparalleled force passed through the iron chain to the entire tungstenwood vessel. The tungstenwood vessel, which was originally advancing slowly, suddenly sped up. Boom! It cut through the waves. The tungstenwood vessel was like a swordfish as it rapidly charged into the chaotic sea. The sudden increase in speed caused Li Jun to involuntarily take 2 steps back. Screech, screech! When the whole Gale Eagle and Blue Wand realized that the tungstenwood vessel's speed had increased, They also cried out excitedly. Their cries echoed in the sky above the sea. The tungsten wood vessel broke through the waves and advanced at an astonishing speed in the demonic sea, a place that people of the northern sea continent feared. Night fell, but the tungsten wood vessel still advanced rapidly. Dawn arrived, but the tungsten wood vessel did not slow down. The sun rose from the horizon and gradually rose higher until it hung high in the west of the sky. Only then did the tungsten wood vessel finally leave the chaotic sea area. On the afternoon of the second day after the tungsten wood vessel left the chaotic sea, the ocean appeared to be very calm. The tungsten wood vessel also slowly advanced towards the north. On the deck of the tungsten wood vessel, Screech, the whole gale eagle, held an iron leaf fruit in its beak and carefully placed it beside the blue Luan. The green Luan glanced at it, then closed its eyes to rest, not eating at all. Seeing this, the whole gale eagle blinked its eyes helplessly. Big brother tongue, look at little gray and little blue. Li Jun was grinning so much that her eyes turned into crescent moons. At this moment, little June, look! Tung Ching Shan's voice rang out. Li Jun turned her head in surprise and saw Tung Ching Shan pointing to the northwest. In the northwest direction, there was an island. Big brother tongue, we saw an island before, but it was a deserted island. Li Jun scrutinized the island in the distance and said, could it be that there are people on this island? Smoke. Tung Ching Shan's eyes lit up as he looked at the island. With his eyesight, he could indeed see the thick smoke on the distant island. If there are people, then there should be people. Tung Ching Shan quickly lowered the sail and used both hands to paddle the two oars. His powerful strength caused the oars to paddle extremely quickly and powerfully. Voila! The tungsten wood vessel immediately sped up and sped towards the island. After a moment, it is indeed thick smoke, Li Jun said in surprise. Tung Ching Shan smiled, but his heart was filled with emotions. He had been on the road for half a year. To be exact, he had stayed on the Bright Moon Island for nearly 4 months. He had been out at sea for nearly a year. I finally saw the people of the northern sea continent. Tung Ching Shan's gaze suddenly swept across the distant sea. Tung Ching Shan frowned. In the distant sea, there was a huge ship departing from the other side of the island ahead. Because the distance was too far, even though it was a huge ship, it was only the size of a finger at Tung Ching Shan's position. Does this island have a fleet that communicates with the outside world? Tung Ching Shan thought to himself. While pondering, the tungsten wood vessel quickly reached the shore. Big brother Tung, there are definitely people on this island. Moreover, there are quite a few of them, Li Jun said confidently. Oh, Tung Ching Shan smiled as he looked at Li Jun. Look at the beach. There are quite a few footprints. Li Jun pointed and said. Tung Ching Shan smiled as he dropped the iron anchor and stopped the tungsten wood vessel. Let's get off the boat. Tung Ching Shan picked up his reincarnation spear and jumped off the tungsten wood vessel with Li Jun's screech. Blue One immediately flew over and simultaneously turned its head towards the whole gale eagle and screeched twice. The whole gale eagle immediately let out a high-pitched screech and obediently circled above the tungsten wood vessel before returning to the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. Li Jun covered her mouth as she laughed. Big brother tongue, Little Blue asked Little Gray to stay behind and watch the boat. It can't be helped. It just isn't willing. With Blue Luan's strength, it has no choice but to be obedient. Tung Ching Shan also laughed. The relationship between the whole gale eagle and Blue Luan was also a topic that Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun often talked about and laughed about. Let's go and take a look at the island. Tung Ching Shan glanced at Li Jun and said, follow by my side and don't go away. Li Jun could feel Tung Ching Shan's concern, so she responded and obediently followed by Tung Ching Shan's side. Blue Luan flew above Tung Ching Shan and the others. The island wasn't small. After Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun walked for about half a li on a desolate road, Tung Ching Shan's complexion slightly changed. What's wrong? Li Jun asked in surprise. A burnt smell. Tung Ching Shan's eyes sharpened as he said, The smell of burnt corpses. Ah! Li Jun sucked in a breath of cold air. Tung Qingshan's 6 senses were very sensitive. Although they were far away, Li Jun couldn't smell it. However, Tung Qingshan had already smelled it. Big Brother Tung, what happened on this island? The smell of burnt corpses? Could it be that you smelled it wrong? Li Jun couldn't believe it. It can't be wrong. Tung Qingshan frowned and held the reincarnation spear. They walked for another 4 to 5 li. Tung Qingshan and Li Jun arrived at a place where humans lived. This is... Li Jun's complexion turned slightly pale. Tung Qingshan narrowed his eyes, and a cold glint flickered in his eyes. On the ground in front of them, corpses were scattered everywhere. Some of the corpses had their heads chopped off, some had a big bloody hole in their chest, and some pieces of the corpses were scattered everywhere. Some of the wooden houses and the like were constantly burning, and from time to time, crackling sounds could be heard. Just by looking at the corpses in front of him, he could see that there were at least over 100 corpses. Massacre! Tung Qingshan was puzzled. Even in the land of the 9 prefectures, massacres would still incur the wrath of both men and gods. Some bandits and horse bandits would only occasionally slaughter a village in order to intimidate the other villages. In the land of the 9 prefectures, massacres were very rare. Li Jun. Tung Qingshan noticed that Li Jun's complexion was pale, and her eyes were strange. Little Jun, what's wrong? Tung Qingshan walked over and placed his hand on Li Jun's shoulder. Li Jun immediately hugged Tung Qingshan as tears streamed down her face. Tung Qingshan's mind was quite sharp. Suddenly, he remembered that year Li Jun's entire family was also massacred by bandits. Her entire family died, and only she and her mother managed to escape. In the end, even her mother was killed. Massacre. Tung Qingshan patted Li Jun's back lightly. After a while, Li Jun calmed down and came out of Tung Qingshan's embrace. She whispered, Big Brother Tung, I'm sorry. I made your clothes wet. It's okay. Tung Qingshan comforted. Little Jun, learn to be strong. Yes. Li Jun lifted her head and looked at Tung Qingshan as she nodded. Let's go and see if there are any survivors on this island. Tung Qingshan felt that Li Jun's mind was in a mess, so he held Li Jun's hand and walked forward. The two of them walked forward. Li Jun lifted her head and looked at Tung Qingshan in front of her. His tall figure, his resolute gaze, and the thick hand that was holding her felt waves of warmth. Li Jun was like a small boat that had found harbor. Her heart calmed down. A shy smile appeared on her face as Li Jun let Tung Qingshan hold her hand and walked forward. On the pirate island, Tung Qingshan held Li Jun's hand and walked for a while. Along the way, they saw corpses everywhere. There were about 700 to 800 corpses, including those that Tung Qingshan didn't see. There were probably no less than 1,000 corpses on the entire island. Not a single survivor. They are really ruthless. Tung Qingshan looked at the thick smoke around him and suddenly recalled the big ship he saw before they reached the shore. He thought to himself, there's a high chance that so many people died on this island. It must have been done by the people on that ship. Big Brother Tung. Li Jun pointed at an obviously tall house not far away and said, Look at the ground over there. Tung Qingshan swept his gaze and immediately fixed his eyes on the ground. A half-burned, incomplete book was lying on the ground. Book? Tung Qingshan was delighted. Yes, Emperor Yu went to the northern sea continent several thousand years ago. Now, several thousand years have passed in the northern sea continent. Who knows what will happen? Tung Qingshan was very clear about this. According to Emperor Yu, when Emperor Yu was still alive, the population of the 9 prefectures was only a few hundred million. Now it was 10 times more. After several thousand years, what would the northern sea continent become? No one knew. Book. Tung Qingshan immediately ran over and picked up the book. For Tung Qingshan, it was better to rely on books to increase his understanding of the northern sea continent. Tung Qingshan and Li Jun both stared at the incomplete book. The cover was yellow bass paper, and they opened it to take a look. Tung Qingshan frowned. Li Jun also blinked her eyes. Big brother Tung. Li Jun looked at Tung Qingshan, and Tung Qingshan looked back at Li Jun. Their expressions were as innocent as they could be. This is what I am most afraid of. Tung Qingshan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The words on the book were also square characters, but every stroke and stroke was much more awkward. Every word was like a painting. I can't read. Li Jun's face was filled with helplessness. She was a young girl from a rich family and had been taught well since she was young. She knew the 4 arts: zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. But now, she couldn't read and became illiterate. This is what I'm most worried about. When Emperor Yu came to the Northern Sea Continent, the Northern Sea Continent already had millions of people. By that time, the words would have already been formed. Although there had been some changes over the course of thousands of years, it was still an inheritance. However, it's impossible for it to be exactly the same as the writing of the 9 prefectures. Tung Qingshan shook his head and smiled helplessly. I didn't expect that I would also become illiterate. Even if I get the book, I won't be able to understand it. Chapter 326. The smell of burnt corpses filled the air, and the surroundings were filled with smoke from the remains of the fire. It was a nightmare scene. Tung Qingshan was reading the words in the book. Now I know that the language of the Northern Sea Continent is different from the language of the land of the 9 prefectures. However, I'm still worried about one thing. The language of the land of the 9 prefectures is not the same as the language of the Northern Sea Continent. Tung Qingshan was a little worried. When Li Jun heard this, she hastily said, "That's right. It is said that even some of the kingdoms in the western region of the land of the 9 prefectures speak differently from the people of the 9 prefectures. This Northern Sea Continent is much farther than the western region." Tung Qingshan nodded. Even in the 9 states, although the same language was used, there were still regional differences in different places. Big brother Tung. Li Jun hastily comforted him. However, you don't have to worry too much. The distance between the Bright Moon Island and the land of the 9 prefectures is extremely far. However, the words of the Bright Moon Island are the same as the words of the 9 prefectures. Perhaps the Northern Sea Continent is like this. Tung Qingshan took the incomplete book and said with a smile, "What am I worried about? At most, I'll spend some time to learn again." In his previous life, as a super assassin in the underworld, Tung Qingshan was proficient in several languages. In terms of language learning, he had undergone forced training by the assassin organization. Tung Qingshan had also learned some tricks. Learn. Li Jun nodded and giggled. It shouldn't be as difficult as learning the language of beasts. I can learn the beast language in a few months, so I can definitely learn the language of the Northern Sea Continent very quickly. All right, let's go. He doesn't know how to read, so it's useless even if he gets a book. Tung Qingshan directly took the incomplete book with him. Immediately, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun walked towards the tungsten wood vessel. When they came here, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun followed the human residences. As for Tung Qingshan, he left in a straight line. He cut his way through the thistles and thorns as he rushed towards the direction of the tungsten wood vessel. Moments later, there's a colony here? Tung Qingshan looked at the empty field in front of him. There were many burnt wooden houses and corpses all over the ground. Those people are too ruthless. They don't even spare the elderly, women, and children. Li Jun clenched her fists, her face filled with anger. There's still someone alive. Tung Qingshan's eyes suddenly lit up. He could feel the faint breathing sound. There's a living one? Li Jun was also shocked. Yes. Tung Qingshan's gaze fell on a few corpses at the side of a dilapidated wooden house in front of him. He immediately walked over and lifted the top 2 corpses. He found a skinny, pale little girl with a scar on her face. The tattered cotton-padded jacket still had bloodstains on it. With Tung Qingshan's acute senses, he could hear the weak breathing clearly. Tung Qingshan stretched out his palm and placed it on the little girl's back. A gentle blue light flowed into the little girl's body. The internal supreme force, in terms of nourishing one's health, assisted in healing the body. It was even better than the innate true origin. Yes, the little girl's complexion, which was as pale as a corpse's, became slightly better. However, it was still very pale. She let out a weak sound through her nose. His mouth, which had turned white from thirst, opened. "Little June, bring some water," Tung Ching Shan said. Li Jun was still standing at the side. Tung Ching Shan couldn't help but turn his head and see Li Jun biting her lips with red eyes. "Little June," Tung Ching Shan shouted again. Li Jun immediately woke up. "Go get some water," Tung Ching Shan ordered. He knew that it was better for Li Jun not to think too much at this moment. Okay. Li Jun hastily looked around and quickly saw a wooden barrel not far away. There was still water in the barrel. A woman was lying on the ground beside the wooden barrel. Li Jun immediately used a ladle to scoop up some water and trotted over. She was very careful not to spill the water. "Big brother Tung, is she all right?" Li Jun asked worriedly. "It's not a big problem. She was stabbed in the back. Fortunately, her physique is good. The wound healed quickly and the blood loss wasn't too much. She survived," Tung Ching Shan said as he carefully poured water into the little girl's mouth. The little girl unconsciously opened her mouth and drank some water. "Look at the surroundings. The blood hasn't completely dried up. They probably died only 2 to 4 hours ago." Tung Ching Shan looked at the little girl and said, "Although the wound doesn't bleed fast, she would have died if we came an hour later." Actually, if it wasn't for Tung Ching Shan's sensitive sixth senses, he would have walked past. The little girl would have died without a sound. Chi-Chi, a ray of aqua blue light appeared on the little girl's body and then hid inside. "Yes, it's about time." Tung Ching Shan withdrew his right hand from the little girl's back and said, "She's not a big problem now. She just needs to eat something and replenish her blood essence. She will recover soon." Tung Ching Shan stood up. Li Jun squatted down and supported the little girl. The people who died on this island probably have some background. Otherwise, the enemy wouldn't have used a warship to come and kill them. Tung Ching Shan glanced at the little girl and said, "This little girl's clothes are tattered. Her face is sallow and emaciated. There's even a scar on her face. Obviously, she doesn't have a good life. On this island, she's probably at the bottom." At this moment, the little girl's eyelids twitched. Then, she slowly opened her eyes. Her bright eyes looked at the man and woman in front of her with fear. When she saw the corpses at the side, she seemed to recall what had happened earlier. Her eyes suddenly widened. Her eyes were filled with fear and her body was trembling. Like a mute person screaming, the little girl pushed Li Jun's hand away and retreated. This violent movement caused the wound on her back to split open again and blood flowed out. The little girl didn't seem to feel the pain. She looked at Tung Ching Shan and Li Jun with fear in her eyes. "Don't move." In her eyes, the tall man dashed to her side and poked her back a few times. "This little girl is too frightened." Tung Ching Shan looked at the little girl and shook his head. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." Li Jun walked over and held the little girl's hand. She used her other hand to gently wipe the little girl's dirty face. The little girl seemed to be slightly frightened, but she didn't dare to resist and let Li Jun wipe her face. Li Jun looked at the little girl with gentle eyes. She seemed to feel the kindness of the other party and gradually relaxed. "Big brother Tung, let's take her away." Li Jun raised her head and said. Tung Ching Shan looked at Li Jun. The people around her are all dead. Her parents and relatives are probably all dead as well. Li Jun said softly. When the little girl heard these words, tears rolled down her cheeks. Droplets of tears continuously rolled down her cheeks. Seeing this scene, Li Jun felt even more distressed. She's all alone now. If we don't help her, how can she survive alone on this island? All right, let's take her. When we reach the shore of the northern sea continent, we'll settle her down. Tung Ching Shan didn't refuse. Li Jun carried the little girl and walked towards a tungsten wood vessel with Tung Ching Shan. On the tungsten wood vessel, the little girl shrank in the corner of the vessel in fear. "Let's go." Tung Ching Shan put away the iron anchor, grabbed the 2 long oars, and started rowing. Just by looking at the two thick and strong oars, one could feel that, without the strength of several tens of thousands of Jin, one wouldn't even be able to row at once. However, Tung Shan lifted the heavy oars with ease. This scene caused the little girl in the corner to widen her eyes. Screech, screech. The blue swan lightly flapped its wings on the deck and spread its tail feathers, as if displaying its beauty. The little girl couldn't help but look over. Eat something. Li Jun walked out of the cabin with a freshly heated steamed bun in her hands. She still had the pastries she brought from Bright Moon Island. Fortunately, the dried pastries could be placed for a long time. However, even if the meat buns were placed carefully, most of them were already spoiled. The steamed bun could still be eaten. When the little girl saw the steamed bun, she immediately grabbed it and ate it with big bites. Don't choke, drink some water. Li Jun handed over a cup. In front of the little girl, Li Jun was unprecedentedly gentle. She was like a big sister caring for her little sister. After eating 3 steamed buns in one go, the little girl's complexion became much better. She looked at Tung Shan and Li Jun with a curious gaze. Don't be afraid. If you're tired, go and sleep for a while. Li Jun said softly. Huh? Tung Shan, who was rowing the oars, laughed. Little Jun, this little girl might not be able to understand what we're saying. You're telling her so much. What's the use if she doesn't understand? Li Jun smiled and didn't say anything. At the same time, she put the plate to the side and sat on the deck, holding the little girl's hand. It seemed as if they were sending a friendly message through the handshake. Thank you, big sister, uncle. A very soft voice sounded on the deck. Silence. The lazy blue one also turned to look at the little girl. The expressions of Tung Shan, who was rowing the oars, and Li Jun, who was holding the little girl's hand, instantly froze. I understand. Tung Shan was overjoyed. We understand. Tung Shan was both shocked and pleasantly surprised. The distance between the northern sea continent and the continent of the 9 prefectures was very far. However, the language was actually the same. The little girl's pronunciation of big sister, uncle, was very clear. It was completely the language of the 9 prefectures. Although it had some local characteristics, it didn't sound strenuous at all. One could understand immediately. Tung Shan didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he called Li Jun big sister and himself uncle. He was only 19 years old. However, Tung Shan was still very excited in his heart. If he could understand what they were saying, it would be much less troublesome to travel in the northern sea continent in the future. This is good news. Tung Shan smiled. Yes, I understand. It will be more convenient in the future. Li Jun was also very happy. You can speak? Li Jun looked at the little girl in surprise. From the beginning until now, she hadn't spoken a word. The little girl looked at Tung Shan and Li Jun, not knowing what to do. Wasn't she just expressing her gratitude? If they could understand her words, why were they so surprised? Could it be that they couldn't understand? The little girl had a lot of doubts in her heart. Yes, the little girl was a little scared, but she still said softly, Why didn't you speak before? Li Jun asked in surprise. The little girl said in a low voice, I was afraid that you were sent by the Chunshin clan. I only realized after boarding the boat that there were only 2 of you, not a large group of people from the Chunshin clan. Chapter 327. Chunshin clan. Tung Shan and Li Jun glanced at each other. In the land of the 9 prefectures, sects were high and mighty. Perhaps some clans had some status in the sections. However, it was impossible for them to use the clan's name to kill outside. Tung Shan pulled up the sails and adjusted the direction of the sails. Which clan are you from? Tung Shan sat on the deck and asked. The little girl looked at Tung Shan and Li Jun and carefully said, The Lu clan of the Dark Steel River is on the island. After the Lu clan was defeated, they fled to the island to recuperate. I didn't expect that the Chunshin clan would chase them all the way to the island and annihilate the entire Lu clan of the Dark Steel River. Oh, you're not from the Lu clan? Tung Shan deduced from the little girl's tone. The little girl lowered her head and whispered, I, I am a slave bought by the Liu clan. Slave? Tung Shan wasn't surprised. He looked at the little girl's tattered clothes, sallow skin, and scars on her face. Obviously, her life wasn't good. However, it was rare for a little girl to speak in an orderly manner. Li Jun held the little girl's hand and looked at her. In the future, you won't be a slave anymore. All right, what's your name? How old are you? Li Jun asked. I'm called Little Ping, 9 years old. The little girl said, 9 years old? Li Jun was slightly shocked. At this moment, the sallow skin and small body of the little girl looked like she was 6 or 7 years old. She didn't look like a 9-year-old at all. The little girl bit her lips. I was sold 3 times and often didn't have enough to eat, so sold 3 times? Li Jun was shocked and felt even more heartache. Tung Shan squinted his eyes and glanced at the little girl. Li Jun only said 9 years old in surprise, and the little girl immediately understood what Tung Shan was thinking. She immediately replied that she was sold 3 times and didn't have enough to eat. So she was thin and small. Just this intelligence alone made Tung Shan surprised that a 9-year-old child could have such intelligence. Night. The sea breeze blew as the tungsten wood vessel headed north. The little girl called Little Ping was currently lying on Li Jun's lap, fast asleep. Tung Shan was like a statue, standing at the bow of the ship and looking ahead, motionless. Tung Shan's robe fluttered in the sea breeze. His gaze instantly fell on a small dot in the distance. Although it was far away, Tung Shan could see it clearly with his dark vision. That is, in the distance ahead, there was a large ship. It looks like it's the warship that left the island. The tungstenwood vessel was small in size, but its speed was faster than the warship. The distance between them continued to shrink. From a few miles away, Tung Shan could already clearly see the battle flag that was raised high in the air. There were 2 large characters written in bold calligraphy on the flag. It should be the 2 characters of Chanshen. Although he didn't know the characters, Tung Shan still made a guess. Little Jun, Tung Shan said. Li Jun looked up at Tung Shan. I'm going out for a while. I'll get on the ship later. Tung Shan said with a smile. Hearing this, Li Jun was surprised and asked, Big brother Tung, you want to go into the sea to practice fist art in the middle of the night? No, you'll know later. Tung Shan walked to the bottom of the cabin and took out the dark blaze rod. With Tung Shan's current spear art, even if he used the dark blaze rod, experts like Huangfu Yujiang and the first godly general Borolimu wouldn't be his match. Whoosh! Tung Shan leaped out and dived into the bottom of the sea. How fast was Tung Shan in the sea? A huge ship that was nearly 150 feet long was slowly moving forward, like a huge beast that was entrenched on the ocean. A fiery red figure stuck close to the bottom of the ship and emerged from the surface of the water. It was Tung Shan. Their shipbuilding ability is not inferior to the 9 prefectures. Tung Shan's figure flashed and stuck close to the side of the ship, carefully listening to the noises on the ship. There were many people on the ship, and the noises were chaotic. I have 3 9s. Hey, what a coincidence. I still have 3 10s. No one wants to stay here, right? TSK. I still have a second card. Give me money, give me money. Hearing this, Tung Shan couldn't help but smile. Cards? In the land of the 9 prefectures, there were some casinos that played dice and cards. However, it sounded like the rules of gambling in the land of the 9 prefectures were different from the northern sea continent. Ah, a woman screamed. Third brother, come, cheers. Today, it's all thanks to your blade. Otherwise, I would have been crippled by that old bastard of the Liu clan. The sound of drinking cups was also mixed in. With so many people on the ship, it was indeed chaotic. It really is the Chanshen clan. Tung Shan was like a ghost as he flashed and disappeared. On the Chanshen clan's warship, there were only a dozen or so warriors standing guard on the deck. However, they were all very idle. Why would they worry about a sneak attack on the sea? Bastards of the Chanshen clan, come out. An ice-cold metallic voice instantly penetrated the entire warship, echoing in every cabin. Immediately, The expressions of the originally idle warriors changed. Like wild wolves that were about to go crazy, they all looked toward the source of the voice. Who is it? Who dares to make trouble here? Angry shouts were accompanied by a large number of warriors rushing out of the cabins. A large number of warriors gathered on the spacious deck that was several zhang long. All of them held large machetes in their hands as they stared at the black shadow at the bow of the ship with bloodshot eyes. Silence! A short-haired, brawny man dressed in black armor raised his left hand. The several hundred people on the deck immediately became silent. However, each of them still stared at the black shadow at the bow of the ship, as if they wanted to swallow the black shadow alive. Who are you? The short-haired, brawny man looked at Tung Qingshan. A robber. The black shadow's cold and stern voice rang out. Enough nonsense. Take out all your money, books, maps, and the like. Otherwise die. The voice was like the clashing of metal, frightening people in the middle of the night. However, the several hundred soldiers on the ship were all elite soldiers of the Chunshin clan. How could they surrender so easily? You dare to rob our Chunshin clan, and you're doing it alone? The short-haired, brawny man laughed wildly. The several hundred soldiers also laughed wildly. Although the short-haired, brawny man was laughing, he was examining the newcomer. He was dressed in black and had a tall and thin figure. He stood there as straight as a spear. In his right hand, he held a dark red, long stick. A stick expert? Even if he is an innate expert, he wouldn't rob an entire ship of elite soldiers alone, right? Among the people my Chunshin clan has offended, there shouldn't be an innate expert who uses a stick. The short-haired, brawny man thought to himself, I will count to 3. If you still don't hand over your money and items. The voice became even colder. 1. The black shadow shouted, Brothers, kill him. The short-haired, brawny man roared, Kill. Like a pack of wolves, the warriors held large machetes in groups of 5, forming a simple military formation. All of them howled, their eyes filled with frenzied, killing intent. They charged straight at the black shadow in front of them. The black shadow waved the long black stick in his hand. Boom! With a thunderous roar, several soldiers were immediately smashed into pieces. The force of the swing of the cudgel caused the dozens of people behind it to be thrown into the air. Cries of pain resounded throughout the battleship, and dark red blood splattered everywhere in the dark night. The black shadow immediately stepped forward and waved the long stick to the left. Boom! Another sound that sounded like it was smashed on the heart rang out. Fresh blood splattered, and another group of people was sent flying. Many pieces of flesh and broken bones rolled on the deck, and the deck was dyed red with fresh blood. The several hundred warriors, who were originally in a frenzy, immediately turned pale. They were completely stunned by the opponent's 2 sticks, and all of them stood rooted to the ground. You want to kill me? The cold metallic voice resounded again. Beads of sweat appeared on the forehead of the short-haired, brawny man as he hastily said, No, no, bang. With another sound, the short-haired, brawny man was smashed and sent flying like a sandbag, falling into the sea with a splash. 2. The black shadow's cold voice resounded. At this moment, the warriors remembered that the terrifying expert in front of them would kill them all on the count of 3. We will give. Give us all the money. We will give you all the books and maps. Although they didn't understand why the opponent wanted books and maps, no one dared to talk nonsense at this moment. The opponent's powerful martial strength had already proven everything. Hurry up and get them. If you don't get them, you will still die. The cold voice resounded. After a moment, the large chests of gold and silver were piled on the deck, along with many books and maps. Tung Qingshan looked at the gold and silver, books, and maps in front of him. I didn't expect that the Northern Sea continent also uses gold and silver as money. So much gold and silver. I reckon that they just slaughtered the Liu clan of the Dark Steel River. You slaughtered the Liu clan, and you only got this little. Tung Qingshan said coldly. Where are the gold notes? The warriors were all terrified and uneasy, afraid that the opponent would discover that they hadn't handed over the gold and silver. Indeed, they had hidden a lot of gold and silver and hadn't handed it over, because if they really handed it all over, they would be in trouble when they returned to the Chunshin clan. Furthermore, they believed that this expert couldn't possibly know how much gold and silver they had obtained. Gold notes? One of the officers asked doubtfully, "What are gold notes?" Hearing this, Tung Qingshan instantly understood. There probably weren't any banks in the Northern Sea Continent. Oh, could it be that the Northern Sea Continent is so chaotic that they don't have enough power and capital to establish a bank? Use the sacks to pack everything. Tung Qingshan instructed. Don't take silver, just gold. Soon, the warriors had packed the large amount of gold into 3 sacks. As for books, there weren't many. Who would bring books when going to war? There were only a dozen books. There were quite a few maps, but most of them were military maps. Tung Qingshan carried the dark blaze rod on his back. Then he grabbed 2 large sacks in his left hand and 1 large sack in his right. Phew! His entire body emitted a fiery red, innate, true origin as he directly jumped into the dark and boundless sea. Hundreds of warriors ran to the side of the ship and looked down. They're finally gone. They scared me to death. Only then did the warriors let out a sigh of relief. Big brother, so much gold has been taken away. What should we do when we return? Are you stupid? Meeting such an expert, how can you survive and bring the gold and silver back to the clan? The clan is still dissatisfied? We were lucky. If this expert was acquainted with the Liu clan, I'm afraid that all of us would have died today. Mother asterisk her. He killed so many people with 1 strike. Could it be a Golden Dan, innate expert? A warrior with a big beard licked his lips and felt a lingering fear. On the tungsten wood vessel, Li Jun and the little girl were discussing Tung Qingshan. Suddenly, swoosh! A shadow descended from the sky and landed on the deck with a bang, causing the deck to shake a few times. Tung Qingshan casually threw 3 large sacks, and the gold bars in the 3 sacks immediately fell out. The golden light of the gold bars dazzled the little slave girl. Li Jun was even more shocked. Yes, in the Northern Sea Continent, this amount of gold and silver is enough to spend. Tung Qingshan said. P.S. Just 3 chapters for today. The first chapter was updated late. Tomato is still in debt. So miserable. Does anyone have a monthly ticket? Your monthly ticket has fallen to 3rd place. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.